Hey, so welcome back to Shoot Me Straight. Today we have Jay
Pagnotta.
Pagnotta. Sorry, man. You just told me that.
No, that was pretty good, man. It was pretty good pronunciation.
So, Jay, we've been communicating for a little bit through text. I think was Neil is the one who connected us.
Yeah, Neil McLean was team guy. I deployed with him in Colombia in 16, 17.
Okay. Yeah, so he gave me a brief description of what you were going through at the time, and obviously you were still going through it. You were in the Navy, and you were pretty much unable to come out and say anything.
No, I was pretty hamstrung by like any kind of offense that I could play, at least according to my lawyers. And by that time, everything the lawyers were telling me, I was just following.
Yeah, well, that's a smart thing to do, especially if you have good lawyers.
Right, their steps. So between that and even talking to you, I think your advice, just as somebody trying to help, was like, hey, let's wait till you're out.
Yeah.
Then we started getting dates and stuff. So yeah, we didn't say anything while I was in, like, just to cover, make sure.
And that's a smart thing to do because, guys do. If you do say something while you're in, they'll just tack on some more charges. They'll find other ways to screw you. So
and it's tough because you're wanting to like scream stuff from the mountains, or like you got all this access, social media and stuff to like blast all this stuff out there, but patience.
Yes, patience. It's a virtue.
It is.
So we're going to get into exactly what happened with you in your career, but for right now, I want the audience to sort of like get to know who you are,
gotcha.
And where you're from, and we'll just progress into the nightmare that happened.
Yeah, the unfortunate story.
Yeah.
Well, first, thanks for like provided me this channel and opportunity to do this.
Of course, brother.
Because this is it. This is my last little. Can I get any reconciliation, or can I help people not go through what I went through? But. Yeah, SB1, I did 15 years, or just under 15 years. Came in 2010. Had a rough, well, no.
You came in 2010?
Yep. Came in 2010. Didn't get out to Coronado till middle of 11, I would say. I had a rough go in the beginning, but we made it.
How old were you when you joined?
I think I turned 29 in boot camp.
Okay, so you were older.
Yeah.
What drove you to join the Navy later on in life?
So that's an interesting story. I am probably 100% a lone survivor guy. I was engineering for a power company when all that stuff kind of came out and like hit radio, and I did a lot of like field engineering, driving around. So I had heard Marcus talking on one of the like radio shows about like the whole Operation Red Wing and stuff.
Yeah,
and I just got kind of hooked on it, and then like bought the book and was like, man, this is insane. And I mean, this is kind of funny now, but like I was engaged. This is 2010, or no, this is probably 2008-9 when I found the book. I was engaged. My wedding was like a year out, and I was in horrible shape. So I was like, man, I got to get in shape. Like, but I needed more than just get a gym membership. So I had to like, SEAL train to get in shape for my wedding. Well, I'll be damned if not 7 months later, I'd like dropped like 50 pounds and taught myself how to swim. And it was pretty wild. Then I'd read another book of like, hey, you want to like go into NSW? How do you here's how you do it. So I just started calling like Coronado and like different numbers. And then they hooked me up with a mentor in Atlanta. And from there, I just started like talking to them and going and watching some of their PSTs. And man, the next thing you know, I was like taking a real PST and like retiring from my engineering guy, because I had been there since I was 20. I'd been there for over 7 years, so I was like vested and stuff.
So was it just like because you get in shape for your wedding?
Yep.
And did that just like motivate, once you started getting in shape, you're like, you know what, I kind of like this?
Yeah, well, it ties back to, I'm old, I'm 42, so it ties back to, I was in college, like 9/11, and all that stuff happened. Talked a big game back then, like me and a lot of my boys, but we always found like reasons of like why we weren't going to enlist and like why it was whatever. As I got older, that ate like in the back of my head, there was still something like, that was like, man, you said you were going to do this. Like,
that little voice.
Yeah. Well, can you do it? Like, and then it kept going to where it got to a point where there were like questions that I needed answers. Like, well, there was a sense of patriotism, like duty, honor, country, like things that I wanted to do. I don't come from a military background, military family. I think I had like a grandpa that was like in the Navy. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of things pointing me in that direction, and there was a pull of like questions I needed like answered about myself. And after doing a bunch of this stuff, and I didn't figure it out till towards the end that like I could have got these answers in any like soft selection, but I needed to go into one of them, whether it was, you know, RASP or SWIC, SEAL, CCT, PJ, whatever. Like going into it, I didn't know that what I was looking for, I probably could have found in like any of those pipelines. But
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
I needed to do it. Right?
You need to test yourself and see what you're made of.
I just made the choice, and I came home and told my then fiance, like, hey, I know you were engaged to this like engineer at a power company, like right in our hometown, but I'm enlisting.
How'd that go over?
Man, she handled it like a rock star. Like, and she has been like through this whole thing.
Yeah.
She basically, I mean, if she told the story, I basically was like, look, I know this is messed up and this isn't what you signed up for, but this is where the ship's sailing. Do you want on or off? And she was like, let's go.
She stayed on.
Yep.
That's awesome.
And then had been there like ever since. So yeah, she's another reason that I'm even here to have this conversation. But that's kind of the pull that like got me in, and that I left a very nice like career that would have been great for me, and went off on this venture to like get the answers like I needed. 2012, I think May of 12, I was class 7-3, SWIC class 7-3, graduated.
So let's stop right. I didn't want to interrupt you, but just for the listeners out there, SWIC, what does that stand for?
All right, SWIC. So SWIC is Special Warfare Combat Crewman.
Yep.
They've changed that a bunch lately, but that's
why I'm even like, I don't know the direction.
They got rid of the rest of it, the like combatant craft, whatever, Special Warfare Combat Crewman. We serve as like the maritime mobility platform of Naval Special Warfare. Mm-hmm. Like that's the bread and butter there, whether it's coastal, like riverine. You need to get, a strike force in somewhere by water. Like that's what we do. Primarily for like SEAL teams, NSW, but we'll do it for all SOF. Interops with, MARSOC, SF, Rangers, like whatever. Primarily, we're an NSW asset. So,
because, you fall under NSW, so obviously.
That's where we go. That's what we do, our deployments. We do get confused a lot with SEALs and team guys and, like, the boat SEALs and two different things.
What's the boat SEALs?
Just talking to different people, like, yeah, I'm, SWIC, like this.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Oh, they're the boat SEALs. Like, no, but, yeah, like, whatever, dude.
Yeah, it's so dumb. But
a lot of the training, they have like integrated like a lot of it that I saw from like when I started, and then post that they're doing a lot of cool things as far as like bringing the classes in through INDOC and pairing them up with like, the SWIC class going through. So they changed a lot of the pipeline.
Do they still, and this is how lost I am on it. Because when I came in, I went to Buds in 2004. And so I think they had SWIC in our INDOC. So when we were in INDOC, we had some SWIC dudes. But then after INDOC, they parted ways and went to their own selection. And then we started first phase.
Yeah, so they started playing with it a little more. Like I call the line of when they started to kind of get it right was like class 6-8, like the Hollywood class. They did the Discovery Channel, like Surviving the Cut.
I was a Buds instructor when they were filming that at the time.
So that's when they did their first major overhaul to the entire pipeline and tried to start lining it up with how Buds went, first phase, second phase, third phase. When you bring in a qualification portion, And they made their first complete revamp of like, this is how it's going to go. And then you saw that on the show, the Surviving the Cut show. I use 6'8" as like a hard line of like, if you're a bow guy and you graduated prior to 6'8", like you wouldn't graduated.
Really?
You wouldn't graduate 7'3".
So there was like they upped the standards.
There really wasn't a whole lot prior to 6'8". As far as a uniform standard of like, in this block we do this 6'8", they looked into a lot of like all of how Buds is structured and run and just started pulling. Like, we're not going to copy it, but what they're doing's been working.
The format.
Right.
Yeah.
The format of everything. And then they've continuously, that's the good thing that I do like about that pipeline, is it is and was getting better and harder like as they advance.
How long is that pipeline?
So now it is like 34 weeks.
34 weeks?
Somewhere in that range.
Is that all selection or is it?
So they lined it up where they're doing, now they got rid of the stuff out in Chicago now. I don't know if you know, or the prep is all in Coronado now.
For everybody.
For everybody.
Thank God.
For everybody.
Yeah.
Because we were, even when I went through boot camp in 10, like we went through all like 800 division. It was just SEAL, SWIC,
yes,
EOD, and then diver. They got rid of all that. But
what did you think of that?
Oh, it's the greatest thing ever.
Was it?
It saved, yes, because when you go to boot camp, I remember I retired, power company. I was 28. I had house, fiance, managing like life as a big boy.
Yeah.
And then boom, boot camp, where they're like literally telling me, how to wash myself,
how to fold your clothes
and stuff. And I'm like, okay, the saving grace there was like the 105 of us in that 800 division. Like the average age was like 25. I think there was like 60 dudes with bachelor's degrees, another 20 with like master's degrees, a bunch of guys that like left very lucrative jobs in the private sector, things they were doing to come do this.
Yeah.
Right. And that was, the guys in that boot camp was what made it tolerable, at least going from a grown man at 28, like into boot camp, like the stark difference of like what you're, because I would look over at some of the kids, there were, some 18-year-olds and stuff, and they were handling this stuff just fine.
Yeah.
Like, because the transition was so small.
Well, they're also an empty vessel to
Right.
where it's like they're being told where everything, and they're like, okay, I'm going to do exactly what you say. Whereas you already have experience in life, and you're like, what are you saying to me, dude? Like,
it was a culture shock. It was such a shock. But luckily, there's there's all these other dudes that are like, like my rack mate was, Wake Forest like finance major that like left Wall Street to come try to be a SEAL, right? Yeah. Just all sorts of, you throw a rock and there was another interesting dude that like was doing some cool stuff that just dropped all that and decided to do this. And like that made boot camp as miserable to me as it was. And I swear to God, to this day, if you were to ever say you have to choose, go back to boot camp or go do first phase again, I'm picking first phase.
Oh,
every
for
time.
Sure.
Every time. And like people kind of look at you like, what? Like, I don't think you understand how miserable Navy boot camp is.
And it's miserable not in a physical standpoint.
There's nothing
at all. Like,
not at all.
And I think that's also what makes it the most miserable is I had the same, I went to boot camp, I was 19. But in my mind, I was like, oh, this is Full Metal Jacket. Like, we're about to get our shit pushed in every day, and just like they're gonna make us warriors. Like, I thought in my mind that's what boot camp was, and then within the first 24 hours, I looked around. I was like, I fucked up.
Yeah, maybe Marine boot camp.
Yeah, and it's all folding clothes. It's marching, and then it's putting up with. So I didn't have the divided. Like, I went with the regular Navy.
You just had,
and we were intermixed too. So we had female and male. So like, you got to see. I remember looking around and seeing people crying, breaking down at night. Like just the.
Oh, hey, I saw it in the 800 division. As a matter of fact, I think I was one of the only married guys that like didn't find myself in that office like talking to the RDCs. And I got it. Like I just kept my stuff to myself. I was miserable.
Oh yeah, I mean it's miserable because you're like in a little prison. Of illogical. It's a mess, all it is really is. It's designed to brainwash you into like, this is what the Navy expects of you, and this is our code, honor, courage, commitment, and you come out of there somewhat, you're like proud to be in the Navy. But I left there like, at the end of boot camp when they give you your Navy cap and people are like bawling their eyes out, I literally was embarrassed. I was like, this is not what I thought. I'm like, and people are like proud of this. Like, you're proud because you stayed up for 12 hours. And I was like, this is nuts. And I was like, this is the final test. So yeah, it was a big disappointment.
Yes, that whole thing was, and I know I had my standpoint on it when I left to go to boot camp. I told my wife and family, because I actually have family in Chicago. They were like, yeah, we'll come up for like your graduation. Like, we'll go see your aunt. Like, they're over there in Barrington, like right near. And I was like, no, y'all don't come up here for this. This stuff's lame. Like, y'all wait till like, I'm getting pinned.
Yeah.
Like come out to California. Like, don't come here. This is nothing.
Did they show up anyway?
Man, it didn't take but a week before I was writing a letter going, you know what? I was wrong.
Yeah.
Y'all come up here. And it wasn't about like, look, that whole thing was ridiculous. Boot camp itself, like the physical.
Yeah.
But it was the like, okay, yeah, this is going to be a lot harder. Not just the being away, the complete change of like lifestyle.
Yeah.
So I was like, no, y'all come up here. Come on, you come see this graduation.
I can definitely see your point in, having it that, like you said, the 800 division and making that a little more tolerable just because you're around dudes who have a goal beyond boot camp. They're
Everybody did.
This is nothing.
Nope.
We're headed to the real selection. Where if you're around people where this is like the toughest thing they've ever gone through, it makes it that much more insufferable. You're just like, dude, this is nothing, and I can't believe I'm standing next to you. Like, so I can imagine like being around guys of the same mindset.
It made a huge difference. And then even how the like RDCs and stuff treated you. We picked stuff up so fast, like that it just was super easy for them because they literally handed them like the best of the best that society has to offer, and they're like, oh, okay, we could teach these guys how to march and walk around like
in
easy
about
day.
10 minutes.
Yep. The only downside is when we would get in trouble or not do things right, they would go to like physical, like push-ups, sit-ups, all this stuff. So we were like, all right, this is the only way we're really getting to train outside of our hour, like at the pool. So most of the time we just didn't care. We'd do stuff wrong just to get physical exercise.
I did the exact same thing.
Problem there was because we were all 800 and the RDCs were pretty sharp to it, is they were like, they did that for about a day, and they were like, man, y'all like this. Not happening. So from that point on, we did nothing physical. We had to write like stuff from the Blue Jacket manual or our little like handbook. Oh, like there were no more beatings. There were no more like holding and leaning rests. Like they figured out real quick that we were into that.
So obviously you get done with boot camp and you go right to Great Lakes. And
yeah, well, no, my story gets even like, we'll touch on this real quick because it's not that relevant to the grand scheme of things. But no, I get out of boot camp. I'm actually in on a SEAL contract, right?
Okay.
We come out of boot camp. We go over to the first day of the prep program. We do the 2-3 days there of like, hey, here's how it's going to go. Get all our little gear and stuff. And then day one of like, hey, we're starting prep. Like there's a PST, like our in PST. Cool. No big deal. Pretty good at that. Really fast runner, swimmer. No problem. So we do that, and it was swim first, push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, run, right? That's how it goes.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So we get through the swim, we get through the push-ups, sit-ups, we're doing pull-ups. We're in, I don't know if they were still in the same place in Great Lakes, but there's like a big like pool where they bring everybody in to swim, teach them how to swim, whatever. There's a bunch of pull-ups. we're doing our pull-ups. A bunch of like instructors out there. You got your partner in front of you. Everybody on bar, mouth bar. They're going to count off. This is still entry, so you only got to do like 6.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to count your first 6 together, then like bust them out, whatever. So cool. Everybody hops on. We do our 6. And then after, the whole thing's instructor-led, 1, 2, 3. So everybody got to their 6. Bust out a couple more. My partner counting my pull-ups, like turns around and looks because the door opens and they start bringing like all like female division like through the pool. They're about to do all their like swim stuff. So like dudes turned around like staring at the girls like coming through, and I'm like, hey man, you stop counting my pull-ups. And I'm like, hey man, count my pull-ups, dude. Like I'm not that good at these to begin with. Like let's count them.
I can't waste a couple.
I can't wait. Well, I said that a little louder than I probably should have. So next thing you know, I got like people are over here, instructors want to know what's going on. And I'm like, I'm still doing pull-ups, right? Now we're already past the 6 for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, okay, we got a discrepancy. And I'm like, yeah, 8, 9, 10. And they're like, hey, what's he on? And he was like, 8. And I was like, dude, that was just 10. And they were like, oh, y'all can't agree? 0. I was like, okay, that's weird. So now there's a even bigger, and like more people start coming over. I've probably done like 12, 14 pull-ups. Then instructor says 0. And I'm like, all right, like I'll maybe get 2 or 3 more, and then I'm done.
Yeah.
You know, whatever, no big deal. I kind of thought they were just like messing with me because I saw it happen with like push-ups, sit-ups, whatever, with another dude. It seemed to be like the same thing, no issues. So, you know, we go to the run, like do the run. Everything's fine. That's a Thursday. We're off like Friday. This is some sort of holiday, Labor Day, something, where we're off like Saturday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So now I go back to class, do everything like no big deal. Like, you know, I had like a 7-something swim time, 8:30-something run time, you know, 70, 80s push-ups. I don't even know what they gave me on the pull-ups at that point because I don't know. I wasn't even counting. A couple of days go by, like I'm still in the course and everything. Nobody said anything. Dude comes to the classroom where we all are, and it's like, hey, like Pagnotta, they need to see you, like downstairs. I'm like, okay. I go downstairs and they show me like walk right into like basically like a board of some sort. And they're like, oh, yeah, you failed the PST. And I was like, what? No, I didn't. And they were like, yeah, it says right here, pull-ups. Like, you didn't get sick. And I'm like, wait, what? Nah, like, my dude wasn't counting, but y'all counted the 6. And they were just like, nah, failure. Huh. And then the next thing I knew, I was like, out. Just
no questions
grab your
asked.
stuff. Like, and I'm just in shock now. Like, I've been in the Navy like 2 months. Right? I have no clue what's going on. Now, good thing was the mentor out of Atlanta that like did all this stuff was an awesome guy named Frank Cutler. Still friends with this guy to this day. He's like the Nostradamus of like NSW and how things have played out. And he told me like, look, things like this can happen. Right? Yeah. And I didn't understand it at the time, but all of his dudes that he thought were like legit guys that like he wanted to support, you know, he gave him a cell phone number, stuff like, look, if anything wild happens, don't do anything, don't sign anything, you immediately call me. I was like, all right, well, here we go. So I call him, like he calls down there and basically comes back to me with like, well, a bunch of those civilians have like taken over that prep program and like quotas are quotas and numbers have to be hit and people have to fail and nobody else really did. They only had like one like legit from that class. So like nobody cares about your second one. You know, everything's falling on deaf ears about what I'm trying to do to get you in. Now, Frank was hard on like pushing dudes out of going to buds anyway. He was like smart moves EOD. Like if you're smart.
I'll agree with him.
Right?
Yeah.
And we were all looking at him like, Frank, man, what are you talking about? Like, look, we know what we want to do. And he told us and told us and told us, and none of us listened, and we all had to figure it out ourselves.
I completely agree. I talked to a EOD class a couple years ago that graduated from here, brought them all down to the Irish pub, and just they were all wanting information on like, hey, what's going to be like when we get to the team. And I remember they were all young, and I was like, what made you guys all go EOD? And they're like, I would think it was like 20 of them. They're like, oh, we all went to Buds first. And I was like, okay.
Yep,
there is a lot. Well, the good news is you guys are on a better track.
Yep.
I'm like, where you're going, there's less of you. There's more money, more funding. You're going to get better gear. You're going to get trained just the same. Yep. And I was like, and the good thing is like, you don't have to go through 6 months of hell. You're going to get attached to a SEAL team, and you're going to learn the same exact tactics that we do. So, yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more.
Yep, he tried. Like, he was this was 2008, 9 that he was hard on pushing. Like, you go EOD. Like, if you want to do this, like, go EOD. Of course, none of us listened. Mm-hmm. But he saw this situation unfolding as it was and was like, man, this is ridiculous. So he was like, I'm not going to let my dude get burned like this. So he makes a bunch of phone calls to some very high up people. And the next thing I know, they have literally created an EOD slot for me, like out in Great Lakes, like miracle stuff, pulled wild strings to get this done. But again, 3 months in the Navy, I have no clue what I'm doing. I'm just trying to follow the rules and stuff, and I literally got tricked out of that EOD slot by a civilian. They just didn't want to do the paperwork. They didn't want to deal with the extra TS security clearance that needed to be put in, and they literally tricked me out of it. Like, flipped their little screen around, showed me my EOD slot with a number 1 next to it. Mm-hmm. This is a detailer, I guess, at Great Lakes. Then showed me of the whole rest of the screen where there's just rates, AW, BM, just like all these just rates and numbers, quotas beside them of like how many are left and where they are and different. He shows me the EOD one. It's like, you see that one? There's 1 slot for the entire everybody in the Navy. I have to do all this extra TS stuff because it wasn't done because you only needed the preliminary secret stuff originally. By the time I get this done, there's no way this slot is going to be left. Like, it's going to get pulled off. And I'm watching the screen. The rest of those billets are moving up, down, whatever. They're like, there's no way this is going to last, like, over the weekend. And this is going to take me much longer than, like, a few days. So I know that you think they did you a solid and, like, there's a spot for you, but no way all this gets done. If you don't take something, like, now, this is going to go away. And then when you come back, I'm just going to give you like undesignated or like cook or something. And I'm like, what? Why would you do like? Well, you got to make a choice. Like you have to make a decision like right now. And then they were like, look, there's some AW, some like rescue swimmer slots open. I can do right now. I can put you in there, lock it up, and like have you like down to Pensacola. I was like, well, I'm not trying to go on like an aircraft carrier, like undesignated. And if that slot's not going to be available, of course I don't have my phone on me, like none of this. I'm just following like rules.
Well, yeah, you're right out of boot camp, so you're not.
Yep. So
you don't know what you don't know.
Nope. I don't know what I don't know. And I do know that particular civilian was extremely unhappy that these strings were pulled and that slot was created, because that person told me to my face that there's nothing that this, Frank was senior chief, he was still active at the time, that there's nothing that this senior chief Cutler can do for you or any of his friends, period. And I was like, because I was asking, because Frank told me, he's like, hey, ask for like, can your people have 48 hours to like work something out? Will you give us that? And they were like, okay. But they were like, they told me to my face, there is nothing that anybody could possibly do in the next 48 hours to change this outcome. Well, sure enough, they created this EOD slot. Well, now these people are wanting to know who I am. Like, how did you, E3, their Seaman Pagnotta, like, how did you get this slot? I was like, look, I don't know. Like, I called the numbers I was supposed to call. They said they were going to do what they needed to do, and here we are. Well, apparently pissed them off, or that civilian at least off, that I was able to actually do what I say.
Yeah.
So I take the air crew slot because I don't want to go just out to the fleet or a cook or something like that. And I was like, I'll figure something out. I have to call Frank and be like, hey, man, like, they made me take this slot. Like, you know, they showed me the screen and that this EOD slot wasn't going to be available in 48 hours and, like, all this stuff. And he just started laughing. He was like, man, they lied. Every bit of that was a bold-faced lie. It was like, we created that slot. It wasn't going anywhere. It didn't exist for anybody but you.
Dude.
So
and I think that's like important, you know, when, especially for kids that are, you know, that want to join and go into NSW. And, you know, I think the big thing is, you know, there's a lot of concern of like, oh, do I have what it takes to make it and this and that. It's like people don't realize all the other shit that can possibly go wrong on the way to, you know, going to BUDS or SWIC training or wherever. Like there's elements that can literally stop you from going in the Navy just due to piss poor leadership, piss poor, you know, civilians that work there that, like you said, don't even like their job. And they don't look at you as somebody that's trying to, you know, achieve a goal. They're just like, oh, you're a pain in my ass. I'm just sending you here to fill this quota.
You are more paperwork.
Yeah. So you have to add that on top of the bad luck, the possible injuries, you know, and then obviously failing. And
yeah, I like to put those two things into when they try to figure out these whole matrix of like, why are our attrition rates so low? Like, how do we get more people like through? You're never going to figure it out because there's two things, luck and the mental side. That you can't put a quantifiable number on.
No.
But you will not make it through without a certain amount of luck and that mental side. Like the physical stuff, look, you can be an Olympic athlete, a D1 athlete, whatever. If you lose the luck, whatever percentage that is, and then you don't have the mental, well, you're not making it. But a lot of people don't realize how important that luck of just getting – like not having your billet taken away. Or, you know, I had another buddy that, you know, quit in Hell Week and then did everything that he could to try to get back, was a rock star out in the fleet, like, you know, University of Wisconsin grad, like enlisted guy, somebody that they would never have access to. And he only did all this for a second shot.
Yeah.
Right. And everybody was like, yeah, you know, this guy's a rock star. Like, well, he was so good that now he found himself where they're not going to let him go. Like,
yep, and that's the other thing.
You can't go. And he literally took it all the way and was like, okay, well, I'm getting out. They literally let this guy walk away, get out of the Navy, rather than, like, send him to BUDS and give him, like, after he did 9 years.
Yeah, and that's
– and just let him walk away, which he did, and then went off, and, like, now he's in the SF Guard. And went that whole path, and it's like, you let that guy get away, like, for no reason other than, like, the stubbornness of. So there's a lot of luck involved in even getting out there to the pipeline.
Yeah, to the actual selection. Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, you
circle back around in Pensacola for about a year. That's not working out either because that whole rescue swimmer stuff, and they don't really do that. Like, it's not really what that's cracked up to be. So I started looking at it like, okay, I have to make something happen here. Because if I stick with this and just go off into the fleet as, like, I'm probably going to be done and out in like 4 or 6. And, like, I got to get, like, this is not what I left my friend's family lucrative job to do. Like, I got to get back into, like, NSW somehow. So I end up just, like, dropping, like, going undes, like, to the fleet, like, Virginia. Just to try and get back. I took the undes stuff because I made the calculated decision that if I'm not beholden to any rate, nobody can be like, oh, we got to keep him. Like, I don't want to send him here. Now, it's a horrible life when you get put on, like, an aircraft carrier as, like, an undesignated.
Yeah, chip and paint.
Like E3. Yes, very bad. But I was like, man, I got to find a way. I can't lock myself in like this 6 years. Like, I got to find a way to get to where I'm supposed to be. So I go up to Virginia, CVN 75, Truman. It's in the dry dock. It's going to be in the dry dock for like 2 years. So I'm like, okay, cool. I got a plan. I got 2 years to get off this boat, put another package together, get back out there. Now, little did I know that because all of that stuff that happened in boot camp and like that I never started, there was no hold on me to like put a package in. If you quit and stuff, there's like a 2-year wait where they're like, hey, like before you're going to put another, like when you're already in and you're trying to put a package in, you know, from whatever rate or undesignated. If you've already went, like let's say a guy goes, quits, goes to his new command, you can just put a package in like in 3 months after you quit.
No, you have a,
right.
It's like you have to be here for a couple years.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, my stuff, because it was so early, it didn't count. There was no restriction on like, when can I put another SEAL SWCC EOD package in? I didn't know that. Nobody really knew that. Even when I got to Norfolk and I got to the East Coast SEAL SWCC scout team, we were actually holding the package a few months just to try to cover that 24 months in case, because we didn't want to put the package in and then them be like, well, like you got to wait 24 months and it's only 22. And then the command, the CVN 75, want to pull me back away from the scout team, which was not what we wanted. So yeah, I could have more or less, I could have put a package in immediately. I could have immediately, there were no restrictions on me ever putting another SEAL package in, SWCC, EOD, the entire time. Had I just put it together and submitted it, it would have got to somebody. Now, were they going to pick it up? I don't know. But there were no restrictions. So once I got to Norfolk, got onto the Truman, figured out the lay of the lands, I immediately found my way off it by going TAD to Little Creek to the East Coast scout team. It's a whole program they had. It was really cool because they would take dudes from the fleet that were trying to go SEAL, SWCC, EOD, and you could go TAD over there to Little Creek to the pool, and they just trained you. Man, there was like a prep course basically for guys in the fleet. If you could get your command to sign off on TAD to go over there, which not a lot of commands did. So did that. Everything went really well. You know, I wasn't there like 3 months before they were like, made me like LPO of the office. I was putting other dudes' packages together, like, you know, getting their PST numbers and stuff, submitting it. I stayed there like 7-8 months just to try to cover our 24-month window before we submitted my package. I did get hit with the hard reality that I would not be going to BUD/S. Like I was in a year group thing that there was no way that my 2010 year group in 2012 that I was ever getting another slot to go back there. They were like, we don't care if, you know, you'd basically need to be like the Admiral's like kid to get one of these slots.
Yeah.
Because they were doing, and I get that, like the year group stuff matters. Like if you don't manage that and you got too many, you know, 4s, 5s, 6s, 7s in the right spot, like, okay, but something's got to give where you completely take it off the table. Like it just was no longer an option. If you were a 2010 guy and your year group was full, like you weren't going back to BUD/S. Now, luckily for me, they were like, hey, guess what? Like SWCC's wide open for 2010 guys. Wide open. So what do you think? And I was like, all right, okay, that works. That's cool. I just want to get in where I fit in.
Yeah.
You know, I made the choice, and like I even came up with this while I was at that scout team. It's like, because I had really good numbers and I was an athlete and stuff, and they were like, why don't you go to BUD/S? I'm like, look, I can't. Like, the year group's full. Like, I'm putting the package in, it's going to get rejected, and I'm going to go back to the fleet. Like, I can go to SWCC. They need the numbers. I was like, look, everybody can't beat Tom Brady, man. Like, you know, it is what it is. But he ain't winning all these Super Bowls by himself. So
yeah.
I'm going to get in where I fit in. I'm going to be a force multiplier, and I'm going to go to NSW, and I'm going to prove that's where I'm supposed to be, and I'm going to get what I need to get out of this. And I did. And that's exactly what happened. You know, I go out there, go through the pipeline, like do pretty well. Now I'm a fleet returnee, like technically.
Technically, yeah.
Right? So I am coming out there with like, fleet. Now I'm still undesignated, but it helped. I go out. I'm older. I've got fleet time. I was a class leader for like most of all of our pipeline 7.2, 7.3, which we don't have officers, so like our class leader is the OIC. Like that's whoever they pick out. They try to normally pick a prior server or a fleet guy, somebody like third class, second class. In my situation, there wasn't anybody. We were all like E3s.
So you guys have no officers in your course?
None. Just maybe I should have brought that up on the whole like SWIC side. No, we are an all enlisted community, and that is going to come into play in the moral of this story of like when you find yourself in my situation and you have potentially Warcom, at least group, like pointing their weapons at you as an enlisted E6 SWIC. We don't have any officers. We have warrants. So like there is no, flag officer, coming to save you. Or there is no, like you got a master chief and you got some warrant officers.
But you have SEAL officers as the COs.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. So all of your SEAL teams, all of your DET OICs are going to have lieutenants as your DET OICs. We're going to have an operations officer, which is also going to be a SEAL, and then you're going to have XOCO, all SEALs.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I never put two and two together like that because I never like really paid attention. But
about the officer thing, it's a double-edged sword. I looked at it at first as like cool. We don't have them getting in our way. Mm-hmm. Like they can go like play golf and eat cake and do whatever, and like we'll get the work done. But it's a huge. You don't have a seat at the table. You don't have a seat at the real table. Like you're at the kids' table.
Yeah.
Like little kids' table. Like you never get in the seat with anybody that matters. And what we have to hope for is that there's decent 1130s, Trident wearers, that are going to go to bat for us. Because they're the ones that are getting us. Like missions, jobs, money, billets. Like they have all the say when it comes to it because, we don't have officers. Like we got warrant officers and that's it.
Yeah.
So the downside being our leadership is horrible, which I think we've agreed that is a problem across the entire DOD. SWICS is very bad because it's just all enlisted and there's no way around, right? You can't come in like after some of these guys and ever go around them like rank wise unless you put like a warrant package in. But in our community, the warrants don't really do.
They're administrative.
Yeah, they're really administrative.
Yeah.
So like, you got to salute them and like call them sir and stuff. But like, if you want, the most like, autonomy, you need to be like a DET chief, like SEA. Like that's going to do it for you where the officers. So there's no coming around them. Like it's just constantly like we've been in here longer than you. And like, this is the way it is. This is how it's going to be. There's no changing anything. It's all like you wait your turn, good old boy club, you get in the circle or you don't. And there's no breaking that up. Mm. And there's nobody to like help you. Like even in my situation, when you've got a CO, like literally like and higher, and you're just a E6, and then your entire community is enlisted, like there's nobody, even if guys wanted to help me, what are they going to do? Like what is senior SB, CS, so-and-so, like even going to do to stand up for me when you've got, 06s, 05s, 06s?
Yeah. I mean, it's the same in the SEAL community as well.
Right. So I didn't even, when they did the whole isolation stuff, like I didn't even like try to mess with bringing people in to like support. I just was like, man, the more people I'd get close to me, like the worse their lives are going to be. So that's where the whole isolation process like starts. But
yeah, let's get to that. So you obviously make it through SWIC training.
Yep. Make it through, show up in 13, like September of like 13, Special Boat Team 22. That's in like southern Mississippi.
Yep.
Like right between like Biloxi, New Orleans. Pretty much spend like my entire career there. Like I spent 10 years at 22 just deploying. Did Southcom, Paycom, CENTCOM. Well, CENTCOM was just a little PSD with a chaplain, but my 30 days over there, AFRICOM, did an augment with DG Red. That was awesome, and everything I could have asked for. Unfortunately, signed way too many NDAs about all that nonsense, but it was awesome.
Yeah.
I did think they were the most professional unit that I ever saw. At least this was back in 2017, 18. So that was really awesome. That was the only time I actually got I got everything I wanted out of that deployment. Like I got real tier 1 missions, like real outside the wire, like real rounds downrange.
Nice.
Granted, in a augment support role.
Hey, it doesn't matter.
But hey, I got it
or not, you're still in it. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I got to see like the pinnacle, right? And that's something that, that's a win that like can't be taken away. To like, be out on the MSV, like doing like actual missions, and getting told like, hey, y'all are it. There's nobody else behind the curtain. Like, this is it. Like, things pop off, like, at like a, presidential level, national mission level. Like, this is it. We're going to react. Mm-hmm. We're going to go do this mission. I was like, oh, this is awesome. And we're doing, like, just the professionalism and, like, how you're treated. Like, we're doing con ops in, full beards, cut off op camis. Like, nobody cared because everybody was as professional and on point as possible.
Because the mission is all that matters.
Yep. So I always thought it was interesting, like when people would have grooming stuff and be like, "Oh, it's not professional." I'm like, the most professional people I've ever seen. I did a con op from in board shorts, a tank top, and a full beard.
Yeah.
So that, okay, whatever. Did that augment. I did Columbia. So 4.5 deployments.
Okay.
Unless you want to count, I mean, we can count the augment as a whole or whatever. And a lot of that was a detriment to my progression, which, we'll go into a little bit more SWIC stuff, is that it's a very qual-based pin.
Yeah.
They even changed it to where there's like 3 different, there's a basic, a boat captain, and then a master. So they kind of did the like EOD deal where it's like stacked of like levels.
So you got to hit those wickets, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, you need to do these positional authority billets to like move up in your evals and whatnot. Well, if you're deploying back to back to back to back, like, you start getting passed up. Like dudes are doing like one pump, coming back, doing their boat captain, cool, coming back, getting their LPO.
Well, there's a difference between careerists and then guys that want to just do the, like, I'm here to do this job, and
yep.
And there's no, if you're one of those, and it's the same in the SEAL teams where like I didn't pick up a leadership position like a LPO until my 7th or 8th deployment.
Wow.
But I did that on purpose. I was like, I don't want it, like, because I saw the progression, and I'm like, once you do a platoon chief, I was like, you're done. And SEA doesn't go kick doors. He's there sort of to being the admin. So I literally was putting it off because I knew, I was like, dude, and I saw my buddies do it to where they got their LPO after their 2nd platoon, did one more platoon as a chief, and then it's like, bye. And that they were like, how are you still deploying and I had more time than anybody in too because I was a little bit older.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
unfortunately, they wouldn't let us do that.
Well, yeah, and that eventually I got pulled in. They're like, dude,
hey, you got to go up.
You have to do your LPO. And I was like, okay, I got it. But that's, I think that there's a stark difference, though, between guys, like you said, that they do a deployment, they come back like, no, I want to pick up rank. So I'm going to not deploy
Yep.
and go to do these courses that are going to help me.
Yeah, and they get the fast track, and like, look, I got buddies that did that,
Yeah,
and
and
I have no
I'm
ill
not,
will
like,
towards
hitting
that,
on 'em,
right?
but-
As long as you're not stepping on dudes,
Yeah.
to put yourself in a spot, like, cool. If that's what you want to do, that's fine, but that's not me. Like, I came here to do like one thing and get these questions answered, and then it evolves, and you start like, I'm just here for the boys, like the dude to the left and right of me. I don't really care about anything. Like, it'll happen, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'll get my LPO spot when I get it, like out of merit or debt chief. But when it happens, whatever. I don't really care. Like, I'm not going to do a whole bunch of things and like get in this little circle of we're going to fast track this guy, because I'm doing all this.
Because he plays the game.
Yeah, because in my head, I was like, man, I've already volunteered twice for some pretty hard stuff. Like, what more do you want from me? I'm trying to go hang out with my wife. Like, I got other things to do. Like, I don't have time to just volunteer here, there, or be on board with like all of this stuff when like I've already I don't see why that means my eval should suffer. That like, am I doing my job any less? No, but we got to figure out a way to like, differentiate you guys.
That's what you put on your evals, like, oh, I'm passing out cookies on Sunday at church for my community. Like,
yeah, cool.
Stupid
good.
shit like that.
Like, I'm glad you did that.
But that's the kind of stupid shit you have to put on your eval if you are deploying or just doing the work, because eventually that becomes not enough. They're like,
nope, not
okay,
enough.
Yeah, you're doing your job.
Nope, not enough.
But
now
what
you
else
need
are
to
you
do this.
doing?
Now you need to do this.
Yeah.
Now you need to do this. And then I never fit in because once I did get into, boat captain, like some leadership spots, they knew I wasn't the guy. You weren't going to be able to come up to me and be like, hey, man, we want you to get all your shooters need to get their EXW qual. So we're going to need you to facilitate that and push them to get their EXW qual. Because I was going to be like, no, I'm not doing that. Because one, it's a made-up qualification. These guys are already expeditionary masters in NSW. Like, this doesn't serve a purpose. You're making them do this so you can put on your bill, on your eval, that, 17 people got this qual. I'm going to lay the qual out to them and tell them what it is. And if they decide that it's beneficial to them to get that qualification and go through the board and put the time into it, or that they can use it as a force multiplier downrange, cool. Then they'll go do it. But I'm not going to like trick these guys into like making them get this qual so like I can have a better eval or you can have a better eval.
Or you can get promoted.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that. I'd rather take them out to the boats and like, work on their 3 feet of space or, take guns apart. Like, let's do something real rather than this nonsense. Like, you made that qualification up for techs to come to NSW and not get put behind, right? That was a whole, so why are you making my guys do this? Like, or why do you want me to force them to do something like this? So I was never getting in that circle because I was never going to be that guy that was going to just play ball with like dumb stuff.
Yeah, well, big Navy stuff.
Yeah, for no reason. Like, look, if there's a value to it, like we'll come back to this on the your master training specialist qualification that I actually thought was very valuable. Like the curriculum, like the course, the skill set you get out of it when you're done. That should be like, you should probably encourage dudes to go, because not only is it going to help you like inside of NSW or as an operator or in the military, but even outside, like it's all,
that's a good qual to get.
Yeah, it's a good qual to get. And so I just kept it real on like, look, I'm not going to, just tell these guys nonsense just for my own personal gain. Like, that's not going to happen. So I never was going to be in that circle, but I mean, you don't have to be in it. Like, you stay in long enough and you do your job right. Like, you're going to get your spot. You'll get your debt chief. Being I joined so late, that's about the max I was looking at. When I decided I was going to do 20, because I didn't know if I was going to, I was like, we'll fill it out, see how, but as I got, 10, 12, when I signed my Zone C re-enlistment or contract, that put me out to 16 years. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do 4 more.
Yeah, sure. I mean, at that point,
I'm going to do my 4. and be done. Oh, but that is not how it shook out. So 10 years at 22, the 4.5, 5 deployments, whatever you want to call them, re-enlist in August of 22 for third time. That's going to put me from 12 to 16 years in that Zone C. There's a bonus, right? I think at that time it was $100K for Zone C for like all of us, like SEAL SWIC.
Mm-hmm.
I got that. Didn't get to fly out overseas.
Get that tax free.
Yeah, whatever. No big deal. I basically get voluntold that I'm going across the street when I transfer from 22 to NAV Ski Yachts, which is the Naval Small Craft Instruction Training Command. It's a part of NSW. I don't even know if, see, you're looking at me like, I don't even know what this is.
I don't know what that is.
I don't even know what this is. Well, it used to be known as the place where, like, SOs and SBs go to die, right? Specifically SBs. Still need an XO, a CO, and an OPSO there.
Yeah.
Because it's part of NSW, right? So those are your 3 SEAL, your 31130 billets.
Which those are all officers.
Yep. XO, CO, OPSO of NAV Ski Yachts, all SEALs. Everybody else, Command Master Chief, Ops Master Chief, the operational side, all SBs. And it's all going to be like senior, like first class, like boat captains. Like everybody's at least, an 8-10 year guy pretty much at this command.
Yeah.
Because it's basically teaches mostly foreign officers. So like instead of doing a JSET, like they come to us and we put on a watered down.
I gotcha.
Like JSET.
Yeah.
And it's coastal, riverine. And then they even have like, for techs too. So there's like a whole welding program. There's outboard motors, maintenance. And they're constantly sending like different foreign militaries in to that command to learn whatever, riverine warfare, coastal warfare, welding, small engine repair, communications. There's some drone stuff that like they teach, but it's down there in Stennis. Like it doesn't have much visibility. It's the smallest, to my knowledge, it's the smallest personnel wise command. Like maybe there's 200 people like at the entire command.
Yeah.
It's like probably about 10, 12 billets for boat guys. And then your 31130 officers, everybody else is, civilians and support, techs. Not the place you really want to go, in past history, at least. And doing 10 years at 22 right next to it, like I heard all the rumors of like, oh yeah, you want to go over there, you want to go over there. Well, there actually was a new like CO that took over that was there because he was done and doing his Twilight tour, and he was from Baton Rouge. Like I think he went to college like Louisiana State. Prior enlisted, Commander Spites. Like I don't know if you know
Spites.
Mm-hmm. So he was prior enlisted, DG guy, then commissioned. So he was much older. Like I think he was probably like pushing 60s. But anyway, he took this NAV Ski Yachts thing just because he's from Louisiana. They were like retiring to Florida, like Clearwater, I think.
Yeah.
And it was just a good gig for him. Normally, the 1130s that get sent to Ski Yachts, whether the XO one, not so much because they can send XOs that are on a good path down there to just get that checked off. But you're going to find out the guy that orchestrated most of this against me and my family did all of his billets at a boat team as an OPSO, the XO at NAV Ski Yachts, CO at NAV Ski Yachts. And the guy was literally PNG'd from the teams like 12 years ago. Nobody did anything about it. Here we are. So you don't want to be at Ski Yachts as your bread and butter or at least from an 1130 standpoint, you're not getting, I highly doubt somebody that did their XOCO at the smallest command is getting picked up for like major command, like 06.
Yeah, that's where they send an officer that they're like, we get, instead of kicking him out or putting him out the door, we'll have him go be in, which that's a disservice to everybody that's part of that command.
It is, and when we go down that road, we'll get into that one and some of the stuff I found out. But I'm transferring finally, like getting a break, right? Just deploy at my own detriment. That did put me behind my peers as far as getting my boat captain, getting in line for LPO. But we knocked all that out and going over to the new command, like, okay, check. Well, now I'm checking in, and I'm the senior E6, like time-wise. The next LPO slot's mine.
Yeah.
Like, there's a guy leaving. One of my buddies went through, like, graduated with him. We went through, like, SWIG class together. You know, get right into his coattail. You know, hit the ground running. Dude, get my certs, like, quals that I need for instructor training. Just ready to, like, start, like, this shore duty. Like, technically it wasn't shore duty. Like, they still were sea pay, but hit the ground running. Problem was, that summer, June, July, August of 22, when re-enlist, transfer over the new command, I started having pain, like an injury that I couldn't figure out. Now, this was the first time. Like, I've been in like 12 years at that point, 4.5 deployments, like 3 workups. I've kept myself healthy, like no major injuries.
Yeah.
So this is the first time that, you know, I'm actually going to medical and I'm like, hey, something's not right.
What was it?
Well, my initial complaint was like my neck and jaw. Like I had like a pain like coming up my neck and jaw, and it seemed to hurt more when I felt it more when I was like deadlifting, like when I would like strain and then eating. And to me, I said it felt dental, like a tooth. Like there was some kind of like
nerve damage.
Right. That started, like I said, that summer of 22. And I go to medical, and I go to medical, and I go to medical, and I'm like, hey, same thing, same deal. And they're like, you know how military medical goes, at least at the team level. Like at first you're getting like some Tylenol and then some Mucinex, and then they move to like prednisone. And I'm like, okay, cool. The steroid worked for like 2 weeks, and then it came right back. So I'm going back to them and like, hey, it didn't, like, it's back. And they're like, okay, here's some more. And I'm like, okay. Like, in the meantime that I'm seeing command medical, I'm telling them it feels like dental. They're on the saying, well, your neck is probably messed up because of just all the stuff.
Yeah.
That
all
we
the
do.
jarring.
And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's probably, you know. It's like, but I'm checking out, right? I got to do all this checkout process, like, anyway, and go to at least the way. So the way it's set up at Stennis is like you got your team medical, but if you need anything else, you have to go to Gulfport. Like the dental, like their actual, like if you're going to do labs and all that stuff, like Stennis is a NASA space center. Like, so there is no, like there's command, like sick call type stuff. And then for anything else, you got to go to Gulfport. So I had to do all this checkout stuff medically anyway, to go to dental, to go to Gulfport. So I was like, all right, I'm making an appointment because this stuff feels dental. So I make an appointment and I go, and they're like, nah, it's not dental. You're good. All right, cool. Still doing the checkout process. Have to go back again to get the paper signed. They look at my teeth and they're like, nah, it's still not dental. Then I transfer August 22nd over from 22 to Nav Ski Yachts. So I have a new medical staff in charge of me, and they're like, okay, we're going to jump on top of this and like really fix it. Figure out what's going on. And I'm like, okay. So they call over to 22 and they're like, hey, let's sit, like, there's nothing in his record. Like, what have you gave him? Like, he said you gave him, like, you started with Tylenol and then you gave him 2 like cycles of prednisone. Nothing's in here. that y'all did anything. So they go back and like retroactively be like, okay, we saw him for this and like, gave him prednisone. That's the start of the incompetence you're about to see throughout this whole process. So then the new command's like, we'll go back to dental. And I was like, okay, it's the third time that like I'm going to dental, and they tell me again that nope, this is not. They do some more little poking and prodding and whatever, and they're like, nah, this isn't. Keep following up with like your command. Well, they've already went full in to like it's my neck. Like, my neck's messed up. It's causing nerve issues, and that's what's causing like the pain coming down like jaw, head. I'm like, okay, so I'm seeing all these like neck doctors now, and they're trying to they're doing x-rays and stuff, and they were right. Look, I had like herniated discs and like degenerative stenosis, like things that like
common
that we're gonna have, right? Like C-state jumps, all this stuff. Cool. And this is a civilian, the neck doctor that they first sent me to, and he's like, I don't think this is necessarily connected, but there's one way I can find out. Like I can give you a like neck epidural, and if that fixes things, it's going to tell me that where this radiation of pain's coming from. Well, the problem was getting that shot. It took them like 2 months, 3 months to even get that shot approved, like through TRICARE of where this guy wanted to do it. So I'm waiting around the whole time, just like pain getting worse and worse. I'm taking Tylenol like now and like telling all sorts of corpsmen, everybody that is in my medical chain of command, like, hey, I'm up to, 1,500 milligrams of Tylenol, like every 4 hours. That's clockwork to just function, right? I'm still going to work. I'm going to work. I'm like getting underway. Trying to get, fully qualified, like as an instructor. But like, I'm in a lot of pain, like visibly to where people are like I'm not talking, like you can just see it on my face.
Yeah.
And, week goes by, another week goes by, and now we're a month. Well, I just keep up, and as the Tylenol stops working, I'm up to 2,000. Now I'm up to 25. Now every time I went up, every medical professional, whether military or civilian, I literally looked them in and I was like, hey, dude, I'm up to this. I got text messages proving everything that I kept every person in the loop of anything I was doing. And then nobody would give me a solution. Like I was even in the ER telling doctors like, hey, I'm like clockwork, 2,500 milligrams of Tylenol every 4 hours. I haven't slept more than 3 hours in 2 weeks because the pain is so bad. Wakes me up. I got to eat 2,500 more milligrams, wait an hour for it to kick in where it keeps the pain down enough that I can go to sleep. 2 weeks I went doing that, telling corpsmen, doctors, because I'm like, this can't be good. That's like 12,000 milligrams a day.
Yeah. It's your liver's taking a beating.
Yeah. And I'm like, this cannot be good. So they send me to the ER twice. You know what the ER does? Pats me on the head, sends me out of there with like 6 or 8 hydrocodone. Here you go. I'm like, this is the same, like what? Let's fix the problem.
Yeah.
Nope. Nothing. I'm like, all right, well, somebody finally decided to try to get like they wanted another, like an ultrasound or something of my neck. They needed an officer's approval to like expedite the referral. But the first class corpsman, like the good dude in this story, like saw an opportunity to like hold some people accountable, right? So he puts in these notes that's going into this referral, just the amount of Tylenol that like I've been taking for how long, and that people are aware of it. Well, once that's submitted, like it's in and it's documented, and now this DOLT officer like has to do something about it. Like there's no more like kicking this down the road of like, it's not good short term, but it's working. Like it's keeping you out of pain. And I'm like, yeah, but this cannot be good.
No, you're destroying your internal organs by taking that much. Yeah.
And at that point, what do you want me to do? I can't just go wherever I want. Like I have to run all this stuff through medical. Nobody's given me a solution of like, well, what gets me out of pain? Like Tylenol is it. It's all I got. Like even when they gave me the like prescription, like painkillers or whatever, like hydrocodone or whatever. I tried that. Like one didn't do anything. I looked at the bottle and I was like, there's only 5 left. See you later. Tylenol. Here you go. I got an industrial sized bottle. Like, I don't know what y'all want me to do here. You're not giving me solutions, and this is the only way I'm functioning. That went on for almost a month until the corpsman put that referral in, and it like made everybody like react. Now it was a big deal. Now I get recalled. Now I'm at home. It's like probably 5, 6 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to lay down because I've been sleeping like 3-hour blocks for the last 2 weeks, and I'm just exhausted. And my phone rings, it's the command, and they're like, "Hey, you need to go to the ER like right now." And I'm like, "Why?" And they're like, "That's too much Tylenol." I'm like, "Can we just do it in the morning?" And they're like, "Nah, you got to do it right now." So I was like, literally ordered to like go to the ER, like from my house, like civilian. They were like, "We're going to go to the civilian. Like, we're not going to go to the military base. Like, we're going to go to like into town in Slidell, and we're going to meet you there." And I was like, "Okay." So like, I go, like wife gets off work, she comes. Medical meets me there, and they start telling the staff like, "Hey, here's our guy," and I start telling them like, "Hey, here's what's going on." I'm in a lot of like, I've had this jaw and neck pain, like radiates through my head. Like, here's the Tylenol I've been taking. Here's the ERs I've been at in the last 2 weeks. Like, and they were like, "Are you really been taking 12,000 milligrams a day for like the last 2 weeks?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Well, you factor in the last like 4 or 5 months, starting at 500 and to 1,000 to 15, that's a lot." And they were like, "All right, you're the sickest patient in this hospital, like right now." I was like, "You need immediate flush." So they do the whole acetaminophen flush. It takes like 10 hours.
What does that consist of?
A bunch of IVs.
Yeah.
And flushing and pain like I've never experienced in my entire life. When they did that flush, turns out that a lot of Tylenol consistently in your system can block a ton of pain. Who knew? They flushed it all out, and I got to feel what, let's see, that was November, June, July, August, September, October, November. What 6 months of an untreated tooth infection that got into your bone feels like.
So it was a dental thing.
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit.
Now, we didn't find out. We still don't. This is November. Yeah. We don't find out that out till January, right? So I'm in the ER, like getting this flush and all that stuff.
Fucking Navy dentistry, dude.
Absolute nightmare. Like the pain I experienced coming off that Tylenol in that. So basically what was happening is just massive swelling in this jaw area. There's a nerve that comes off the back of your neck called the trigeminal nerve. Mm-hmm. It like runs down your jaw. And the swelling, the constant swelling from the infection was putting pressure, just constant pressure on that nerve and causing the amount of pain. Now, there's a disease that affects that nerve that like the 3rd or 4th treatment for it's like suicide. It's that painful.
Oh, I believe it.
When that nerve is
That's like my nightmare.
Affected. Dude, yeah. Nerve pain is something that like I don't wish that on even the people that did this and like so, I don't wish that on my worst enemy.
I got a story just real quick. I mean, that relates to this. So when I checked into Buds, I got a root canal done by the Navy before I checked into Buds. Like, so I check in, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going through training. I think the 2nd week I start feeling like pain and a pressure. Of course, I'm like, dude, I'm not saying anything because you don't want to get dropped. You don't want you don't want to give them any excuse.
Nope, no attention.
Well, then when I got to Hell Week, it was Thursday of Hell Week. We were doing Around the World, which is where you paddle around, and it literally felt like someone was taking a 4x4 and smashing me in the side of the face over and over. I couldn't eat anything, so I was like squeezing peanut butter to like get. But I get to the beach, and we're about to go do the final. Where they take you down the elephant cages or whatever, and one of the instructors is like, "What the fuck is wrong with your face?" And I was like, what? And he's like,
Swelled
dude,
up.
you need to go to medical now. Well, I fought kicking and screaming. I was like, I'm not going. And they're like, you're going. And so they took me in there. The root canal that they had done was not done properly, and it had gotten infected.
Yeah, imagine that.
And so they literally told me, they were like, hey, you could die. Like, this isn't, like, if this spreads, you're done. So they sent me to emergency dental. The first dentist was like, hey, I'm not working on this guy. He hasn't been, he's been awake for 4 days. He's, like, I will not, and I won't give him that. What he said is, he's like, I will work on him, but I will not give him any pain, like anything, because he's been, so they took me to another dentist. That guy said the same thing. He was like, I won't give him anything and I'm like in my Hell Week clothes. Like, I'm a mess. And so they were like, dude, all right, this guy did a root canal. I had nothing. No Novocaine, no nothing. Just did a root canal on me. I ended up getting done. It was so much pain. Like, I was seeing like flashes of white, but I I made it back just in time to where they all graduated, and I thought, I was like, I'm fucked. I'm getting rolled. But they were like, hey,
that's the difference between rolling you back and rolling you forward. So
luckily, I missed like 2 hours, and they were like, dude, you're rolled forward.
Dear God, you had to do a root canal with non-no.
But what you're telling me, I can relate to, because I'm like, I know how much pain that is, and I know how dangerous that can get.
Super dangerous.
If like, left untreated.
Super dangerous. So yeah, that was a bad experience, right? Like, when I came off, when they flushed all that acetaminophen and we got to see like the true pain.
Yeah.
It was bad. It was bad to the point where, and then they had to wait, once they flushed it, they were like, hey, we can't give you any pain meds for an hour. And I was like, okay. So then I'm just in this escalating pain. That's the thing about nerve pain too that's hard to explain, is that it doesn't stop.
No.
Like, it increases and it's exponential. You break a bone, like, look, I've been in a lot of pain. Once you get through that, it happening, and then you stabilize it and you don't mess with it, like the pain levels out, right? And you can kind of deal with it. That neuro stuff does not.
No, it just constantly shoots
and it goes different ways, and you will not be long for being in that constantly until you start asking questions or trying to get people to do things that are permanent solutions to temporary problems. But that kind of pain will, I thought I had, I went through selection, like, I'm a pretty hard dude. Like,
yeah, but nerve pain is a whole nother animal where it's like, you can't, because there's no escaping it. Especially if you're not taking any painkillers or anything like that, which is,
there's nothing. I sat there for like an hour, like in a ball, just like holding stuff, like in tears. Then they came in with some morphine. And to my knowledge at that time, this is my first time being in like the hospital and hurt and stuff. Like, morphine's the strongest stuff you can get. Like, right? That's what they're going to, we're blowing legs off, we're shooting morphine, be fine. So I was like, oh, thank God, I'm finally get some relief. Well, they pushed morphine. It didn't do anything. Nothing. Didn't touch it. Like, it did the little, like, I've had it before in the hospital, so it did the whole, like, little warm feeling, whatever. But when it came to, like, taking out the pain, it did nothing. Didn't touch it. Well, I started panic. And this happened like 5 or 6 times in that hospital, that my blood pressure hit like 200 over 200 out of just pain. Like 225 over 205 is about as high as it got.
This is like, so what's
that's stroking out, like,
as a medic, I'm like listening to this and I'm like, I don't understand if the pain was that bad and they're like, hey, there's morphine's not doing anything. And I would think the first option, because I've had nerve damage and nerve pain in my lower back, obviously from, and you get it, if you heard of an RFA, where they go in and they singe the nerves.
Okay, yeah.
So I had that done, and that did take it away. for
So that's
a
an
couple
option
months.
when the trigeminal like nerve disease, that is one of the treatments of like kind of going in there and burning
Yeah.
like the sides.
It's so it doesn't send the signal to
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But they don't. But you understand too, being like military and stuff. Like nobody's doing that. Like first, you got to try all these neuro meds. Like first, they got to put you on all these neuro meds, like carbamazepine, oxycarb, like the nerve meds and stuff. And then they're gonna jack the dosages up till like my brain turned to mush. Like they literally told me to stop. There was a month period that they had the nerve meds jacked up so high that like they were like, "Hey, just phone muster." Like I couldn't drop. Like I'd forget like where I was when I drove into work and was like, "Where are my keys?"
So when did they prescribe you all those? Was this after the
Yeah, so
hospital
this
visit?
is November of 22, and this is the first time in the first long stint in the ER, long like 7 days, is when and now this was at the civilian hospital, but again, military, like our whole staff came in and kind of just started orchestrating and pointing everybody in a direction. Mm-hmm. Right. That was the frustrating part, is because I was where I could have probably got help, but military came in and was like, "This is neck. We know his neck's messed up. This is a neck nerve thing." All right, whatever. Well, they're running all these tests and labs, and you know all this stuff is in when we get to the like NDAA claim and like the malpractice suit. Like we'll double back onto some of this stuff, but man, I'm in there 7 days. They ran like every lab and test like you could imagine, but they were being told that like this is a neck problem, right? So a lot of things were being isolated. I was doing CTs and MRIs, like all of just like my neck.
Yeah.
At no point like. They did do labs and blood work and all of this stuff. And it's probably like on day 5, the pain side of things, morphine didn't work, Dilaudid did. Mm-hmm. A lot of it.
Yeah.
And this was something completely new to me as well. I was like, what is that? When the morphine didn't work, I was in full panic of like, I don't know how this is ever going to stop. And they had to wait their time. They came back in with the Dilaudid and it worked for like 30 minutes. Once they figured out their regiment of like what was keeping me out of pain, they were basically coming in every 2 hours and giving me, I don't know how much it was, but they would push the Dilaudid and I'd go to sleep. And then I'd wake back up about an hour and a half and there'd be a pill to like overlap. And that was it. Like it was that bad. The only way they could control was basically shutting me down.
Sedating you.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then they were like, all right, well, this isn't sustainable and this isn't working really. I mean, it's getting them out of pain, but this isn't solving the problems.
No, this is not a permanent solution.
No, and I'm in the ER, and the ER is trying to just get me out, right? They're just trying to get me stable and get me out and back to the military. So then they moved me upstairs to the ICU to do a lidocaine drip. Like, that's how bad this pain is, and they're trying to figure out, like, how can we get him out of it? And I'm like, all right, like, cool. Well, that backfired. Man, that backfired so bad. So the lidocaine drip, guess what it did? It just numbed my entire body to where I felt nothing except for where the pain was, like in the infection spot. So that didn't work at all. And they were like, okay, we're going to abort that. They go back to the Dilaudid like every 2 hours, like literally like clockwork. Now I'm in the ICU though, so the nurses are on point. Like they're not missing anything. Because the problem here is if you go 5-10 minutes over the window of the painkiller, then it's going to take us 24 hours. The pain would run away to astronomical levels, and then it would take like another 24 hours to get it back down to manageable, to where I could start to have conversations and like not be shut down every 2 hours. Somewhere along the lines, like day 5 or 6, somebody pushes a bunch of IV prednisone. I don't know which doctor decided that route that they were going to do. Obviously, they're not telling me this type of stuff, but about an hour after that, I was like, hey, I feel good. Like, this doesn't hurt anymore. And it's not this massive, like, opioid that you're shutting me down with. Like, let's use it. Like, that's great. And they were like, oh, okay. That's weird. Bunch of steroids worked, but, okay. So then they figure out, like, hey, we got to do this prednisone shot, like, every 8 hours to, like, cover the 24. They keep me in there, like, 2 more days. So now I'm off of all the pain meds and just on the steroid, right? 2 days, and they're like, hey, we're going to discharge you because we got you out of pain, and we're going to give you all this military. Here is the 7 days worth of labs and all this stuff we did, and here's some follow-ups we want them to do. And then here's a prescription, prednisone, that he needs to take. And it's a lot. Like, we got it at 80, but if 80 doesn't cover it, you know, you might have to take another one, let us know. But I left out of there with a prescription of 80 to 100 milligrams of prednisone a day, indefinitely. So that's what I did.
Yeah.
And that was the only thing that kept me out of pain. And sure enough, they were 20s, so, like, I was taking them, like, every, like, 4 hours or whatever to try to space it out. And, yeah, the pain came back in a 24-hour cycle, so we had to go to 5. But that wasn't supposed to be permanent. Like, it was keeping me out of pain until the military, like, figured out, like, what the heck was wrong with me. Like, different specialists, whatever. But that's all I had. Like, now, no more Tylenol. Like, the prednisone's keeping me out of pain. And I stayed on that for, like, almost 3 months of, like, 100 milligrams of prednisone. And that is what did, like, the most, like, permanent damage, like, overall. That
really?
Like, yeah, that's what ruined, like, caused bilateral avascular necrosis in both femoral heads, like the bones dying. When you that much for that long, like, it just, it restricts blood flow. It weakens all your muscles, tendons, ligaments. That's why my shoulders started tearing on daily routine activities. Same thing with the massive amount of antibiotics that they had me on. It was just, it all came together for just a giant shit show of incompetence, and left me in the state that I'm in now of, like, not a whole lot I can do physically, at least post, getting these hips replaced or the full scope surgery they both require now.
So when you were taking this prednisone after you got out, were you still working? Were you going into work?
Yes, I was, but this is, let's caveat back to that. I was in a limited duty status.
Yeah.
Well prior to that, when they were, like, trying to figure out, like, what the heck was wrong with me. Now, they hadn't put me in full, like, the full code status yet. They were still just light duty or whatever.
Yeah.
But I was going into work. I was just doing, like, you know, administrative stuff. I really wasn't getting underway or anything at that time. But, yeah, I was going in to work, but mostly I was going to doctor's appointments because that's what I had, like, all over the place all the time, because they were just throwing darts at stuff, like, trying to figure out, like, what the heck was wrong. Again, with the neuro, like, you know, they pumped me full of all these, like, neuro meds, turned my brain into mush. Stayed on the prednisone.
Who administered you the neuromeds? Who prescribed it? Was it the military?
Both. It was, so when I got out of the civilian hospital, right, they were referring me to civilian neurologists.
Yeah.
Right. I saw them for about a month. When the military decided they weren't doing what they wanted, or the neuro meds weren't, like, working, so they were like, we're going to scrap all that and we're going to start over at Keesler with neuro in Keesler.
Keesler is
Air Force Base, like,
okay,
right there in Biloxi. And I was like, okay, I guess, like, whatever. So we basically just started, like, the whole thing over. But at the 3-month mark, like, December-ish of being on that much, like, prednisone, like, the side effects are horrible. Like, the weight gain, the night sweats, blood pressure. It put my testosterone in double digits.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's what prednisone. That's what
that with the lack of sleep and then the pain you're in. Yeah, that's gonna
all of that
jack up your hormone levels big time.
Yep, and then that comes into a play as well, like at the end, towards the end of this. But so I go to medical and I'm like, hey man, we got to do something. Like we got to titrate off this. Like something's got to happen. Like I can't stay on this amount of prednisone. Like I'm not sleeping. Like I'm irritable. I've gained like 30 pounds. Like this is ridiculous. And they're like, oh yeah, I'm kind of worried about it too. And I'm like, yeah, well, let's do something about it.
Join the club. Yeah.
And, and the DO's telling me, again, remember, this is me coming to her being like, we need to titrate here. This is not, all this other stuff is really bad, my neck pain and jaw and all that. But now this is getting to be just as bad. So we got to do something. And they're like, oh, yeah, I'm worried about it too. It can cause, like prednisone can cause like adrenal failure and like Cushing's. And I'm like, okay, like sure. What's the solution? Because I only have two options right now. A bunch of Tylenol or a bunch of prednisone. Like, that's it. So what else are y'all going to do? And they're like, oh, well, we're going to work on it. We'll try to titrate it. And we did. I never could get it below 60, like 60 milligrams before the pain just started to skyrocket out of there. December, they have no solution, and it luckily, like, solved the problem itself. Like, that infection finally, like, it cracked open, like, part of my jaw. And when that happened, my whole face swelled up. So I called medical, and I'm like, hey, I can't open my mouth. Like, I literally couldn't open my mouth, like, that far. And I was like, whole left side of my face is swelled up. So they're like, okay, go to Keesler. I was like, all right. So this is January 7th or 8th of 23 that I go to Keesler, swollen face, check into the ER. And they're like, oh, that's not good. Now, granted, I've been going there for months now, seeing rheumatology, neurologists, like all sorts of people. Not they don't have all these records and files and stuff on me. But the first thing they do since my face is swollen is finally somebody says, let's take him to an oral surgeon. So I go down to finally, after 9.5 months, I go to an oral surgeon that has like all the equipment and 3D scans and stuff. And this guy is going to be like the true good dude of all people, like officers, medical in here. This guy, this Lieutenant Colonel Christensen, oral surgeon, solid, like spot. Of course, he's out now because he's tired of all this nonsense and went into the civilian deal. But this guy found it, right? Like does all his deal, and he's like, dude, that's one of the worst infections I've ever seen. You're probably 48, 72 hours from going septic. Like, we need to do emergency surgery now. And I'm like, oh, okay. Interesting. Now, the treatment that I was getting in there was bad. Like, at the Air Force Base. Like, bad. Like, things like, they couldn't even, like, hit a vein to, like, draw blood or...
Oh, you're talking about just the
incompetence
of some of the medics.
Yeah, right. So they're like, hey, we want to do this major surgery. We're going to have to take 3 teeth, part of your jawbone. And now the oral surgeon, like, is a bro. Like, he just did. I could just tell, like, the guy, like, I'm talking to him, like, he's legit. And I'm giving him my concerns. And I'm like, look, dude, you might be the baddest oral surgeon this side of Mississippi. I don't trust the staff around here. Like, there's a recovery process. Like, there's pre and post surgery. I don't trust any of this. Like, I don't really feel safe doing this here. Like, I think I just want to go to Tulane. And he was like, okay, like, I feel you, but you need to get in an ambulance, like, right now and go to Tulane. Like, this isn't a wait, like, 2-3 days. Like, you need to leave here and go do that. And that's what I was going to do. Like, shit, he had me talked into... Then like wife and like military, like command, like chain of command shows up out at Keesler. And I'm like, hey, this isn't going to work. Like, y'all know what I've been through. Look, they saw the stuff at the civilian hospital. Like, everybody was all involved. The CO came down, the XO, like my family came down, that whole, like my mom and sisters. Like, they were super supportive of like what's going on. At least that CO and XO, like from the non-medical side. Like that CO, Spites, he was like trying to put me in, got me referrals to the Mayo Clinic, like all sorts of stuff. He wasn't playing around. He was like, fix my dude.
Yeah, so like, he was doing everything.
That guy was legit. Him and the XO, guy named Joel Olveda. It's kind of a little hard to pronounce. Both those guys, to my knowledge, Eddie, they were awesome. Now, people went silent after the lab urinalysis hospitals, which we're going to get into. Mm-hmm. But I feel like those two guys at least stayed neutral throughout the entire time and just let things play out. And it wasn't till like a change happened that, you know, I became public enemy number one of like group 4.
I'm interested to see how you went from being in pain for 9.5 months trying to like fix it to a public enemy.
It's a good story and it's an immediate pivot. And I'm going to tell you, Eddie, I'm going to tell you. But I did notice, and I think this is important to get out, is they talked me into staying at Keesler, and they did the surgery there. Mm-hmm. And everything that I was afraid of happened with the treatment, the things that happened post-surgery. They left me in this like catonic, like panic state post coming out from anesthesia. And couldn't get approval to put me back under and like fix the problem. Like it happens a lot. Like people come out of anesthesia like bad and like crazy, sometimes violent. Sometimes I was just like emotional and like had no clue what was going on. Heart rate through the roof. But there's processes to like this happens and then you put them back under and then you bring them out slowly. The whole reason it happened is because it's the military and they do whatever they want. You're not supposed to just yank people out of anesthesia. There's a process, you know, you gradually bring them back.
Yeah.
Not what they did. So things go sideways fast, right? I'm up looking at people like with panic, like doctors, like, or not doctors, but Air Force medical looking at me in full panic. And I'm just like, no clue what's going on. Just had major mouth surgery. They took the 3 teeth, jaw. Well, they're trying to get the meds to put me back under to fix this little problem, and they keep getting denied. Like somebody administratively won't let them, like whatever it was. I mean, anesthesia-wise, ketamine, I don't know. Like, but whatever they were trying to do to put me back under and bring me back out slowly, I had to sit like that for an hour and a half until the oral surgeon came back from home and like overrode everybody and then got me like back under. Now he stayed because he was like, here it is, all coming to fruition. He stayed. And once I came out okay from the anesthesia, you know, he started talking to me and he was like, okay. He was like, man, this is not going well. Look, surgery went good. Like, I think I got everything. Like, I went aggressive and I was like, okay, cool. But like, what the hell's going on? He was like, man, you know, they didn't want to give him the meds to like put you back under. And like, I overrode it. And, you know, I apologize, but look, this is ridiculous. Like, I'm going to put you in the ICU to recover. Like, there's extra staff. You're going to get better treatment in there. Like, I've seen enough. Like, this is ridiculous. And I was like, okay, cool. That's nice. I'm going to recover in the ICU. Man, did they say hold my beer. Because they sent me up to the ICU. And I kid you not, Eddie, for 8 hours, I think I went with no meds because the nurse couldn't figure out how to put it in the computer to get me pain meds that I control. That was the other thing. And this is where it messed everybody up, is the oral surgeon was so upset about the pre and post treatment, right? And he's like, hey, I'm putting you in the ICU and I'm putting you on a button of meds that you control. You don't have to worry about any of these other people. Like, you can't kill yourself, right? It's limited, right? But you push the button. None of these. And I was like, okay. Well, apparently that doesn't happen a lot in military hospitals. And it's another process of like ordering that med, because this nurse couldn't figure it out. Could not figure out how to put it in her computer where wherever she had to go, that med would come with a button for me to push. So they just left me like in pain, like bleeding. Like, there was a hole. They had like a straw coming out of my neck for like drainage. I mean, it was 3 hours, I think, before they finally she tried to stuff some kind of pill in my mouth, the nurse. And this is a patient with major oral surgery.
Yeah.
But it didn't, like, it like bounced off my lip. Like, whole night was a just nightmare of like torture, me trying to call my wife, the command, like them coming in there and turning my phone off. Like, I have all this stuff, like, it's all documented through like texts and phone calls.
Who turned your phone off?
The nurse staff.
For what reason?
Because I had my wife on speaker and I was trying to signal that, hey, so you need to send somebody down here.
Yeah.
Like, to do, because I couldn't talk. Like, I just had all this stuff done to my mouth. But I was trying to tell, like, look, I'm literally getting tortured in here. Like, I'm like a POW in my own, like, this is freaking Biloxi, Mississippi. Like, somebody come help. And finally, that corpsman, same HM1 that, like, put the notes in, he ends up calling somebody, an Air Force, like, ER surgeon, like an officer that he knew somehow, and gets that guy to come up to the ICU and kind of, like, make an assessment of, like, what's going on. And then it wasn't until that guy came up from the basement of somewhere and made an assessment that was completely different than all these other people that were caring for me or not caring for me, that they started like treating me. Now they started giving me painkillers. I mean, they did it with their own push through IV. I never got my butt eaten or anything. But it took like 8-9 hours until that other guy came up and got involved. And then people started like doing their jobs. But then they just left. Like, at shift change, like, people just left.
Yeah.
So when the new staff comes in and I'm covered in blood, like, it's all over my shirt, pillow, neck. Like, and they're like, what happened? And I'm like, I don't know. I still can't talk because, you know, my mouth. Around 9 o'clock is when the command shows up, right? Like, Master Chief, Ops Master Chief. I believe one of the XO might have came. And the lieutenant from 22, the DO, who should have been in charge of all this from the beginning, was there. And this was the first time, Eddie, that I saw the shift. That I saw the complete, like, 180-degree shift on their interactions with me, their interaction with my family, and, like, just the looks on their faces. Like, it all changed. Mm-hmm. From, like, how do we help this guy? Like, how do we help our guy? Like, he's messed up. To, oh, shit, we caused this. We did all this.
Yeah.
This is all on us. We oversaw it all.
Let me guess.
We sat there.
Time to go into CYA mode.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I knew it. I noticed it, like, instantaneously, that there was a shift of, like, uh-oh, there's some real liability here. Real. Like, we just ruined a multi-million-dollar asset for no reason. Like, and there's a massive paper trail to show it. Like, I could feel the vibe coming out of them that, like, that's what was on the table now, and now we had to fix this problem. Like, how are we going to go into CYA to fix what we did here. And unfortunately, like, luck runs two ways. That's something that, like, people need to understand. The good guys have luck and the bad guys have luck too. You got to account for that, because in this situation, I don't want to call them bad guys, but let's just say the opposition in this scenario, they got some fortunate luck. And I basically injected something that they could kind of maybe leap onto to solve their problem, right? To, like, fix the glitch. Like, what did this, like, is there anything this guy did that we could get him? Like, nah. Well, they didn't have to get that far, because I end up giving them exactly what they could want. And it's interesting that it all was, a complete, accident, whatever, misunderstanding. But from their eyes, they saw this as like, okay, this is gold, right? So I'm out. Like, I get out of the hospital. I do the surgery. I got a PICC line in my arm for the antibiotics. I got to keep in for 8 weeks. Testosterone is in the double digits still, right? They were testing it while we were in the hospital recovering from surgery. Command kept telling me I needed like 2 more like tests in, below whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, now I have 5. I have 5 labs. And like the highest was like 68, right? I'm down into like the 30s, like 32. So while I was recovering, like in doing the surgery, and they were doing all this lab and blood work and stuff, I was like, hey, get that 5th or 6th test lab so we can, at least when I get out of here, like, go get me on TRT and start to at least fix one problem, like, instantly. And they do. They take their 4th or 5th, like, lab while I'm in Keesler, and it comes back. It's in the 30s. And they're like, all right, we just got to wait on this one more to come back that they did, and we'll be good to set up, like, TRT. Well, in that time frame from, like, January 11th to the 30th, right, I'm at home, like, recovering, PICC line in my arm, no teeth. I call the command on the 30th, and I'm like, hey, are those test labs back? Like, this is the last one we needed. Like, can you look and see if it came back? And if it's still low, can you start this whole process? Let's go. Like, urology, whatever we need to do. Like, I got enough problems. We can fix this testosterone thing, like, immediately. Well, what time? It's 2022. Guess what NSW's in the deal of pushing? All of this PED testing.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And that they somehow got this clause where only NSW operators can be tested for a specific thing. Like, so they're not wanting guys to go get TRT, right? The goal is to keep as many people, like, off of it, because they're paying all this money for these tests. And if you have 5 guys come up random at however much they're paying, and all 5 of those guys are on TRT legally, well, like, what? Like, we just wasted all this money. So the goal was, let's not have these guys on it. And everybody that was on TRT, like, out in town, like, hey, I went to Men's Health, and, then they brought everything back to medical. Like, okay, here it is. Was fine. Like, nobody had any problems with that until this push. And then everybody that had prescriptions that medical knew about now had to get off, crash everything, and then start all the way over solely with the Navy, where they controlled everything.
Yeah.
And they weren't putting you on TR. You were getting maybe some whatever. So that's why I spent 16 months in double-digit testosterone, like, with all this other stuff going on. Because they just didn't want, it wasn't, us putting guys on TRT is not what we're doing. We're drug testing to get people, like,
and
off.
this was all due to the whole Bud student. They found all the steroids.
Yeah, I mean,
isn't it?
I think some of it.
I mean, it was already a problem before that. Like, they were definitely, and I don't want to say a problem, but, like, I know even from when I was in, they started pushing till, like, I got out in 19. I remember them like, hey, you have to go through Navy Medical to get TRT. But then when you go there, like, if your numbers were, let's say, 250, which is low.
Very low.
They're like, no, that's a good baseline. And so they were.
Yeah, it's like, where'd you get the baseline?
Yeah, exactly.
There is no baseline.
No.
Right. So they didn't care about any of that. But they did somehow get this passed, and this is their baby. You got to understand. Like, think about all the things they're defying from, like, a DOD standpoint of you now singled out and isolated a specific group of people, and only this specific group of people, in your drug testing them.
Yeah.
How'd you get away with that? Like, you couldn't do that with anything else, with any other, like, and look, if you want to do it DOD-wide, like, every single person, like, in the DOD is now subjected to, PED testing, cool, do that. But that's not the case. The only people being actively tested for PEDs in the military is NSW. That's it. So they had an agenda there of, like, not putting dudes on it, which more bad luck for me. So I called to try to see about this 5th or 6th lab being low. So the corpsman looks into my medical record at the labs from Keesler, because I asked him to. Finds the lab, it's low. But then he also looks and finds another lab. Apparently, they were drug testing me the entire time I was in there. In 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday, there was a THC positive. Now, it doesn't have, like, levels or amounts or, like, just like, hey, trace amounts, like, it doesn't say what kind. It doesn't say anything. But it's not there Monday. It's there Tuesday. It's there Wednesday. It's not there Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
That doesn't make any sense.
Right? But it's in my labs, in my medical records. Now, nobody tells me in the hospital that look, I kind of assumed that if you did anything at military hospitals, like labs, urinalysis, blood work, that, like, they're going to test you for everything and anything, right? Like, apparently that's not necessarily the case, but they can. But this whole time, I'm in the hospital and stuff, I was, like, peeing in a little, like, cup. Well, they were testing that, like, unbeknownst to me. Not that I cared. I had no reason. Test away. I'm trying to figure out what the hell is wrong with me. Test all you want. But they're doing this, like, just from, me just peeing in this little cup, right? And it's just unattended, like, all right, cool. But nobody ever tells me through that whole time I'm having surgery and stuff that Tuesday, Wednesday, there was THC. But nobody, I knew nothing. All right, weird. Would have been nice to know that, like, that's there. But nope, didn't tell me anything. It just goes in your med record, like, it's in your labs. I'm asking about this testosterone stuff. The corpsman finds this, and he's like, oh, man, I don't know what to do with this. So he just, like, runs it up, like, the chain, and eventually gets to group with this Lieutenant Jesse Posey, JAG. They decide that they're just going to go high and right, and they're going to use that, like, as a failed command urinalysis, in that they're going to come up with a way to get a urinalysis, right? And this is a bunch of stuff I didn't know at the time, Eddie, right? I had no clue about any of this nonsense. Like, you can't use a medical lab for punitive punishment. So you could have never used anything in anything medical, like THC, heroin, whatever. If you're positive there, like, that can never be used to, like, send you to, like, MAST or an ADSET board. Like, we need to figure out why it's there if you don't know, like in my case.
Well,
or help somebody that has a problem, right?
Also, if you got tested Monday to, whatever.
You're getting ahead of us here, but I know where you're going.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. They kept that secret. They didn't even expose that in the ADSET board when I went, the whole Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We found that out on the back end.
Gosh, these freaking turds.
That there was only 2, which was fine because, look, the truth, like, there was one thing I got told early on in my career is that when you find yourself in some stuff like this, like, the truth will set you free if you tell it.
Yeah.
And you did right, and if you're not having to make up stories and lies and whatever, just tell the truth. Because you don't want to be the senior man with a secret. You want to get this, like, you got to get this stuff out. So after telling, the truth in the actual story of how it turned out to be a completely accidental ingestion of a very minuscule amount of one of the Delta CBDs or whatever that's extremely prominent all over the place. I had no clue. I wanted some nicotine. That's really how this happened, is just a store-bought, vape that should have just had nicotine in it, had enough trace elements to show on the hospital's lab. And then they use that because it just said okay, THC, that's it. Well, you can't do anything with that. You can't send me to MASH. You can't send me to a board. You also can't use it for a seizure for cause, right? So you can't, if me and you were out in the parking lot, of whatever command, smoking a joint, and anybody comes out and sees us, we're active duty. Well, they just saw us. Now they can say, hey, you two in there, we're seizing a specimen for cause. We saw you doing this. There's a whole process, paperwork, things have to be signed beforehand. The command urinalysis guys all in on it, the CO, the XO. It's a whole process when you're seizing somebody's specimen. You have to be made aware of it. You cannot leave until this specimen is given, and you are locked down until this happens. Well, they knew they couldn't do that. You can't do that with a lab. It's a medical lab. It's not a command sweep or anything. You can't. So they call me back in what I thought was just a routine, just a random command urinalysis, because I'd been out the hospital recovering, PICC line. I probably hadn't been to work consistently in 3 months. So I just assumed the reason they were doing that, because that's the whole process, the paperwork, it was exactly how we would do a Thursday or Tuesday sweep.
Yeah.
Everything from putting my finger on, even to the urinalysis coordinator, they duped him. He had no clue what he was doing. So I just assumed it was because you were signing for me and look, I'm not deployed and I'm not out of state. You can only do that so much before, hey, you need to provide us. So I didn't think anything of it, right? Because I have no reason to think anything of anything. And I take I do the urine, easy day, and I'm all right, I'll see y'all later. I still have PICC line in my arm. I'm still recovering at home, phone mustering, texting, and they stop me from leaving. And they're like, hey, wait, you need to go into the XO conference room. I go in there, and that's when they start handing me paperwork that's hey, there was a failed urinalysis at Keesler. And I'm like, what are you talking about? No. And they're like, yeah. And then, but we think, look, this is the original command. This is Spites, Oliveda, a guy named Jonas Marnick was the Master Chief that I'd worked for. And I'm like, what? How did this happen? And they're like, hey, we think it's probably a combination of meds and things got mixed up and it's a false positive and it's Keesler and those tests don't even, that's why we're going to test you here. And we're going to get to and I was like, okay, cool. I don't have nothing to worry about, whatever. So I do that and I provide, sample just like regular. I don't do anything different than a standard urinalysis. And then I go home. I call my wife on the way home and they're like, hey, they're saying I had a failed drug test from Keesler. And I'm like, what is going, this is insane. And she's like, yeah, this makes no sense. Because it just didn't add up. I'm in the hospital, I'm in all the things prior to this of my life, I'm not going out, there's no, it just didn't, none of it made sense. And nobody, none of the command, the CO, XO, everybody was all right, let's just let this play out, right? There's things like this happen, where there's
Well, there's false positives.
Sure, there's false positives. There's also like legitimate accidental ingestion. Okay, especially with how prevalent some of this stuff is now. And I'm sitting there just being like, look, y'all have pumped me full of every drug imaginable, like painkillers, like barbiturates, you name it. Y'all have thrown everything in the book at me, right? And I've done everything in my power to just try to get off of these things and just use them sporadically. I don't like it. I'm not into it. They're useful when you really need it, but they turn your brain into mush. The side effect, dude. Like it's just a net negative, like across the board. So I had access to all this stuff, and everybody knows this, and it's just none of this stuff fits. Where they're like, oh yeah, he was just like going out to the damn Snoop Dogg concert, whatever. Nobody ever. That was never even brought up. Like 42-year-old married, like. No one ever went that route, to the point where you know how some of this stuff works when like dudes do pop on like urinalysis. That stuff spreads like you're in like middle school, like high school, like all over.
Oh, well, yeah,
super
the
fast.
Gossip train.
Yep,
fires off.
In my situation, everybody was silent. Nobody knew anything. They kept it from completely compartmentalized. Mm-hmm. The first reason. With the original command, because nobody believed I did anything wrong, right? They were like, hey, look, this happened, and we have to play this out, or at least XOCO, the JAG in group, they set all this in motion, right? They knew they were doing all of this like shady stuff to hopefully have something to present at an ad set board, because this was going to fix their ruining of a multi-million-dollar asset by a guy that needed a root canal that you couldn't figure out for 9 months and then ruined his entire life. So they got a little luck too on their side that as soon as they found this out, they were like, cool, hit the ground running. And the playbook, the cover your ass, character assassination, like all of that came out as soon as the new CO like took over, because I had to go to an ad set board.
Who was the new CO?
The new CO is a guy named Rob Leclerc, a.k.a. No Work Leclerc. And his reputation, look, I don't know the guy.
Yeah.
I never worked for him, right? Like, he was OPSO at 22 when I was a new guy, and then gone.
Okay.
Right? I had as a new guy, you don't really have any interaction with, like, OPSOs and stuff.
You don't care.
Didn't know him. I did know that people, like other guys, were like, hey, stay away from that guy. Like, stay at ops, stay away from that guy. Like, don't let just stay away. And I was like, okay. But other than that, I didn't know him. I didn't have any interactions with him. And an OPSO at a boat team and a just shooter, I have nothing. Like, there's literally nothing that we do with each other. But that was that's literally it. All I knew of them. Ad set board was September 6th of 24. Right? Yeah. Nope, 23. Ad set board was September 6th of 23. Old command's still there. I go through it. 6.5 hours worth of like everything. I got all these letters of recommendation. I've got the acting, like training OIC, LCPO, like we're coming for like, support and character.
This is, so the ad set board is to administratively separate you from the Navy.
Yep.
And so okay.
So, well, all right. When they tested me again at the command, that one came back positive.
Really?
Yeah. So now that's when I was like, what's going on? How is that positive? Like, that's when I went into like a panic of like, what's going on? Is there something environmental? Because the day when they recalled me to like take the urinalysis, and it was all regularly scheduled, just like a command deal, I had relief there because I was like, oh yeah, like this is going to be fine. They're going to have, I don't know what Kiesler and those morons were doing, but this will be fine. No big deal. But I left Stennis, and I did have this, like, I was like, man, what? Now I want to know, like, what is that going to come back as? Like, what is in my system? What meds, whatever. So I'm like, I don't feel like waiting 2-3 weeks. So I immediately go, like, CVS, Walgreens, something, buy 2 test kits, take them both, like, within 30 minutes, negative across the board for everything. Take pictures, and I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, exactly. Why would it not be negative, right? Like, I'm just confirming my own deal. Like, I'm not working out, okay, because I'm in this horrible, so I'm not taking any kind of supplements that maybe I don't know has this or that in it. Like, I know there's really no other outside element that could be getting this into my system. Like, what's going on? Then I take the 2 tests, they're both negative. So I'm like, oh, okay. Exactly. Easy day. Kiesler, morons. This is going to come back. Everything's going to be fine. Well, 3 weeks later, that thing comes back and it's positive. Now, barely. And this is where it gets sneaky of the things they did. And this is where I had to learn a whole lot about how they do these urinalysis and stuff.
So let me ask you this. Were you the only one they did a urinalysis on?
Yep.
Or was it?
Nope.
Okay. All right.
Nope. It was just me.
Because you know how they do them at the commands, right?
Yes.
They dump a bunch into
do.
one thing, and if it tests positive, then they go and test everybody individually.
Correct. But mine was not supposed to be a seizure. It was supposed to be done exactly how you're talking. That's not what they did with it. They sent it in as a test, as a seizure, a specimen test for secondary. When they do the secondary test, the number's much lower. The original number's like 50 nanograms, like per whatever. Mm-hmm. And the way they'll do it, like you're talking, and they test them on somebody, then they go in individually, test them, and then they'll pull those out, and then those will get sent to the secondary, where they test them at 15. Well, my regular one got tested immediately at 15 parts, nanograms, whatever, not the 50 that it should have with everybody else. And that's important. It's very important because it came back at like 20 nanograms, whatever. Like, people normally, if you're like just out doing or what, you're failing in the thousands, like 2,000-3,000 stuff. So yeah, it told us that, like, okay, this is a very tiny, like, this is below the threshold of why those tests I bought showed negative. Well, everybody tests at 50, like DOD, FBI, CIA. It's only the secondary one that's tested at that lower number. That 20 would have never, like, it would have never happened.
Yeah, if you were tested at 50.
Look, I don't care. Like, is what it is. It let us know it was there, right? Like, good. Now I can figure out what's going on. The only thing I knew the entire time is that I had never done anything or ingested anything intentionally that would cause this, right? That's it. Like, what happened and how, I don't know. Let's figure it out. And, like, I stuck to that, and the command seemed to be like, hey, yeah, this is what it is, but this is a good dude. Like, he's got 15, like, we had all this medical stuff. Let's just let this stuff play out and then see what happens. And I feel like that's how the XO and CO were. But it seems like at group and with this the new CO, they had a completely different deal. Because I go to the ad set board and they hear everything out and they hear all my witnesses, and the government has none. There is nobody available to say anything negative about SB1 or his career or anything. Nothing. It's only, nope, good dude, solid guy. Even through all this, even while they're actively trying to, like, kick me out, I'm getting more calls. I'm, like, doing admin stuff, like, trying to, like, ask it, like, what can I do to be a force multiplier? I know I can't help you guys underway, but, like, let me run these quads. Let me run some of these ORMs. Cool. Next thing you know, so ad set board, September 3-0, no basis, no misconduct. Boom. Done. Right? Problem solved. Mm-hmm. Wrong. Apparently, doesn't matter. 10 days later, I have shoulder surgery. So September 6th, September 16th, I have shoulder surgery on this left one. 30 days convalescence leave. Come back in October. New CO. And it's this Rob Leclerc who, I believe he did his JO pump out west, maybe. He did one pump at a SEAL team, and then to my knowledge, they refused, that platoon, it was supposed to be a CENTCOM pump.
Yeah.
And that platoon was like, we ain't going to CENTCOM with that guy. They swapped it and sent him to SOUTHCOM. And then whatever, say what you want, but the data's the data, the facts are the facts. The guy ain't been back to a SEAL team since. Period.
Yeah.
You can look at it. It's all I don't want to speculate. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. But
you don't have to speculate too far. If a dude is not going back to a SEAL platoon after a certain amount of time, there's a reason for it, and that reason could be personal, where he's I just don't want to deploy, which whatever.
Is that who we want?
Then get out, and then also it could also be the team don't want him back because he has such a shitty reputation.
I've never seen an 1130 do all of their officer tours dissociated, OPSO, XO, CO.
Yeah.
I find it, now that things have happened, this guy's not going to be a 06 at, SEAL Team 4. I don't see that happening under this new deal, but this guy comes in October, takes over. I again don't know him, never been in the same room with him, never had a conversation with him, never worked for him. In the moment he checks in October, now I'm on convalescence leave, lightly recovering from shoulder surgery. So there's not a single day that dude Leclerc took command that I was fit for full duty. Not one day that I was capable and fit to do my job as a SWCC instructor. Mm-hmm. From the moment he checked in to the moment I was medically retired. No gaps, no nothing. And there's another 3 months of baby leave to throw in here, because in this entire chaotic nightmare of a mix, I get a baby. We use surprise. We'll go down that rabbit hole here in a minute, but you want to talk about just adding on to how much can one dude?
It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. But that guy. So I'm trying to figure out what's the deal? What? How did everything go? How did everything 180? Right? I had all the support. I've got all these letters that were in the board. They had to submit them. And then I have surgery. A new CO comes in that I do not know. And then he starts even leaking and putting out I'm trying to figure out what I want to do about him. I'm trying to figure out what I want to, I'm still mulling it around. And I'm sitting there going, what do you mean? There's nothing you can do, dude. There's a 3-0, no basis, no misconduct. You're done. You can say you disagree, but you're just going to look silly. You don't have any weight or pull, or you can't overturn this. There's nothing you can do in a 3-0, no basis, no misconduct.
Yeah.
Sorry. Well, apparently he did not take that sitting down. And between him and the Group 4 psychologist and the JAG, it appears to me that they got together and plotted and conspired, and they were going to figure out a way to. His plan was, and he lays it out, and I have it in writing, his plan was to, strip my NEC, pull my pin, take my money, deny me of medical retirement, and administratively separate me.
Make an example out of you.
Yes, that was his goal. Mm-hmm. Now, why?
Yeah, why? What was his reason
for the
popped piss test?
I don't know. I don't know. Like, they would never answer. This dude, I never wouldn't look at me, wouldn't have a conversation, like nothing. Like, I have no clue. I started telling this story to people, and they're like, "What'd you do to this guy? Like, do you do something to like?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I don't know the guy. I have never met him. I've never worked for him. But as I got information on the dude, he's got a track record for looking to just burn people to the ground for no reason, for just whatever." And, what I came to the conclusion of is, and this is about as negative, I think, as I'm going to go on this route. I'm going to keep it as professional as this is what happens when you get DEI hires, when you get guys that do not meet the standard and they can't fulfill the roles of an 1130, a SEAL officer, right? They can't cut it as a platoon officer, like leading men downrange, doing the job. And he's got no family, got nothing else. When you put guys like that in this type of leadership position and you let them continuously just skirt around and not have to face the well, why can't you lead a SEAL det? Like, why you got to keep doing all this admin ops, training command, war college? Like, what's the deal? No, you got to purge those guys. That is, they knew about the character and quality of this guy from buds on, and just kept pushing it down the road.
Well, yeah, it's kicking the can, and that goes for the enlisted and also the officer community and the teams, where I've seen it with the enlisted too, where a guy just doesn't belong and he's not cutting it. He's been given multiple chances, and instead of pulling his trident and just being like, "Hey, dude, seek life elsewhere, you don't belong here," they'll just kick him over to another team, and they're like, "Now it's yours." And that's, being on the West Coast my whole time, and this is kind of unfair to guys, but at the same time, it rings true. If a guy from the East Coast all of a sudden showed up on the West Coast and is like, "Hey, I'm checking in," the first thing you're like, "This dude's a turd. Why did you come over here?" Now, sometimes it's wasn't
true, right?
It's not true, but I will say for a large percentage of time it is true, because if you looked into his history, you're like, "Oh, this dude had a AD on the East Coast, and then all of a sudden now he's on the West Coast." And that they do the same thing with officers as well. And the big excuse I got, I'll tell you this, when I was a platoon chief, I had a guy, and I'm not going to name him, but he was just a turd. He was in my platoon 2 platoons prior. I did a deployment to Afghanistan. He was there. He went on one op, was not allowed anymore to go on there, right? Then they sent him to the dog program, because that's where they put all the turds at the time. Guys are like, "Hey, I don't want to operate with this guy in a platoon." And this has probably changed, but during this 2-3 year period, this is what was going on.
Yeah, they always have places where.
And so when he came back to my platoon, he had done multiple things, and I did exactly what the Navy or the team you have to have paperwork.
Yep, paperwork. Cool.
So I literally had a stack of paperwork on this guy. I'm like, "Dude, here's all the evidence that this guy probably should not be serving in this community." And they were like, "That's not enough. There's too much. We put too much money into training." And that's always their excuse. "How how much money we've dumped into these individuals? We can't just remove them." But guess what? The next rotation this guy did, he pulled some really sway stuff downrange, and it was gay. It was taking pictures and posting them on Instagram. And they finally were like, "Oh, this guy's a problem,"
Right.
But that's at that point, it's too late.
Yeah, it's too late.
And that's what I think, and I don't know what that for this Leclerc guy. What I'm also speculating too, and is a lot of the times these COs, when it comes to legal issues, and this I've learned this through my case, and then also helping individuals at NSW since I've gotten out, is these COs have no idea what to do a lot of the times when this happens, right? And they depend on the JAG. The JAG is really the one calling the shots and being like, "You need to flush this guy out." This doesn't look good. And I'm not saying this is in your case, but
maybe, yeah,
it's a possibility because that's a huge problem with the JAG Corps is they get assigned to NSW, especially in a like Group 1 or WARCOM capacity. That JAG is telling the Admiral or the Commodore exactly how to handle these situations and how they portray it to the Commodore or the Admiral or whatever officer that they're attached to is if you don't do this, you're going to look bad. You are going to take the hit. So you need to flush this individual out. And a lot of that's even without even looking into the case. That's just looking at the highlight of it. Like, oh, this guy failed a drug test. That's probably like all that JAG said or saw and was like, you know what? You need to make an example out of this person, especially with everything going on in NSW right now.
Somewhat makes sense of why they would do that, but man, the writing was on the wall. Like to step away from this. That's why in this situation I feel like it's probably reversed. Where because this Leclerc guy's one that like fancies himself smartest guy in the room type dude.
And I'm not trying to take anything away from that guy. I'm just going through stuff I've seen.
In this, but what happened here was he did get a like young, in my opinion, like naive, maybe I think he'd been in the Navy for like 7, 8 years, JAG, like early 20s. Like you pull up a picture of the guy, like if you flinched at him, like he's probably gonna crumble onto the ground and cry. So he was very easy. If you were going to tell him, like, yo, I need 3 COAs to burn this dude and his family to the ground, period. Now. Okay. Like, here you go.
Yeah.
And look, part of that I can be okay with, right? There's a job, right? There's prosecution, defense, whatever. Like, in this situation, if you got a job to do and you're doing your job, like I went to an ADSET board, right? There was a prosecuting, JAG that was supposed to say like bad things about me and like all this stuff. She didn't do that, right? She gave her little spiel like of, well, when an NSW guy fails, they lost their faith and trust, whatever. But that was it. It was a very like little paragraph that did piss me off, right? Like, and I did get to rebut her of like, well, look, if anything you said was correct, then why am I still wearing this pin? Like, why am I running like taking on more things like collexes and administrative stuff? Like, why am I not just being like put in a corner and isolated?
Yeah,
like everything you just said was a bold-faced lie. Which at the end of it, like she actually apologizes for like the medical treatment and like the stuff that went on. But she just had a job to do, right?
Yeah,
like, and I was okay with that. Like at the end of it, like she came and talked to me and was like, I'm sorry that like I hope everything works out like medically, that like all this happened and stuff. But I never felt like that JAG, like that lady that was like on the other side that was trying to get me all this stuff taken away from me. Like I didn't feel like anything malicious or like that. She was just doing what she did. And honestly, like if you had to ask for my opinion, at the end of it, I think she seemed happy with like.
That you,
like, hey, yeah, that this worked out how it's supposed to. Right?
Well, that's good. Yeah.
Cool. So I don't really have a problem with that. And that's part of what, when I told you the Pensacola Jags that were on my legal team called me and were like a little nervous about this podcast, is that if I'm supposed to believe that Lieutenant Jesse Posey, like, didn't maliciously do some of this stuff. And he was just putting together Leclerc's 3 COAs of like, burn me and my family to the ground, right? All right, why'd you call the corpsman at NAV Ski Yachts and try to have me removed from the IDES program, which is the med board program? Like, it's a big deal. And that happened. Like, he literally told the chief at Ski Yachts to pull me out of the IDES program, which people that don't know, when you're going to a med board, the IDES program it's an electronic program. Like you go into it and it's going to like compile and keep all of these records that are being built for this board. And like, once you're in that program, the med board PEB program, you are protected, right? You can no longer be just like tossed aside and like kicked out and pin pulled or none of this stuff. Like you're protected till at least the board convenes and they're like, hey, this is what we come up with. Well, remember what the plan was. The plan was, ruin the guy, pull the pin, take the NEC, no medical retirement, like add SEP, and maybe a bad like code. I don't know. Good luck with a 15-year guy, but that was the plan to do. Well, when I got put into the med board program, and thank God for that chief, because he did this expeditiously on purpose, because he saw this guy is a good person in my opinion in this story, because he saw the writing on the wall. And had he not got me into the IDES and med board program when he did, it was going to give Leclerc, Posey, and the Group 4 psych at the time, this lady, Lieutenant Stephanie Snyder, which we really need to get into that lady because she's still active. And to my knowledge, they moved her over to DG to like hide her. So people need to know that lady, Stephanie Snyder, may be running around DG, and that's a problem for like all you guys that might need some sort of behavioral help, anything. Like that lady's not one you want to go near, because she will do whatever she's told, basically.
Yeah, she works for the
CO. So getting past the ad step and this guy's like plans of now he's just going to burn us to the ground, right? Why, we don't know, but like he's doing it. And I'm sitting here getting told by like all my lawyers and stuff. And even like when the ad set board came out and it was all like, oh yeah, everything we said, everything the guy said, it was all like completely explainable. Like this was a legitimate, like accidental, no big deal. Like, cool. Everybody's happy. Like, okay, great. Now let's get him healthy. Let's get him healthy and like get back, let's get back to work. And I was like, all right, cool. Well, I wasn't getting healthy. Like I was only getting worse and worse and worse, because we still didn't know about all these downstream effects of all that prednisone, all those antibiotics, 9 months of an infection running rampant. Like it destroyed things like inside that we just didn't even like. We're going to rheumatology like all over the place. And that's a whole process, man. I was with rheumatology for like 7 months until they MRI'd my hips and were like, found it. Bones are dying, dude. Like that's why everything hurts. That's why your knees and ankles and like you can't walk and you can't do like everything. The way I was describing it to these guys when I was trying to recover or like rehab is like, dude, I'm going out and walking and it feels like, the tour or like, one day of selection, or I just ran a half marathon. Like I just walked 2 miles. Like why does my knees, ankles, hips, like what's going on? And it took, 7 months of a rheumatologist and all their tests to finally like MRI my hips. And he was like, bingo, found it. And as soon as he found that, and this is a civilian, sends it to me and is like, hey, you need to take these MRIs to your Tulane surgeons who did my shoulders and stuff, because this is a priority. Well, when I got that MRI in my hand and I sent it to the corpsman at the command, that's when he immediately sent everything to like med board, IDES, all that stuff, because it gave me the protection where they couldn't do some of the things they were trying to do. Now they did them anyway, and they attempted to like have me. So if that chief would have listened and like was like, okay, pull out of IDES program, one, he's going to get in a whole lot of trouble. Whole lot. Because the only person that can pull anybody out of the IDES program is first flag officer in chain. Right? Now, Lieutenant Posey should have known this, right? He's a jack. you can't tell me that he didn't know that the only person that can pull somebody out of the med board process is first flag officer in the chain. So why are you calling the chief to try to get him to do this? All right, if you're just making COAs, right, and following, cool, which is fine with me. What's up? Because the chief told me, like, of course there's no paper trail, emails or anything, but the chief told me, like, yeah, they were trying to get me to pull you out. I actually, when I got off the phone with that guy, with the lieutenant from group, I went straight up to the clerk and was like, whatever you guys are pulling and plotting, stop. Because you can't do this. You can't pull this guy out of the IDES program. Like, don't do that. Like, I didn't do it, and I'm not going to do it. Mm-hmm. And, like, that was the end of, like, that. But then he told me about it. Of course, I told my lawyers, and my lawyers sent, emails to Posey, effectively letting him know that, like, look, we can't, like, prove it. We can get the chief's statement, but we know what you did. Like, we know what you did. We know what you were trying, and we're aware of it now, right? Like, I got the email and everything. It's like, it's very lawyerly, right? He worded it correctly. Yeah. Basically, like, we're watching. You should not do that again. But what would that have done, right? Well, it would have pulled me out of the IDES, which would have made me susceptible to an NEC board, where they could have pulled my pin. When they pull my pin, what happens then? Okay, SB1, what do you want to do in the Navy that's not this?
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to do any of that. Okay, that's an option. Like, you're going to be you're administratively separated, right? But what do you not get there? You don't get your retirement. You don't get any of that stuff. Like, yeah, you still got your GI Bill, like all that. But
yeah, but after 15 years.
Exactly. So that was his goal is, if we remove the NEC in the pin, we're going to make him have to choose something else. He's not going to choose anything else. He's going to get out, and then we're going to strip all this other stuff away from him. So bang, 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 win, 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 win. Well, the protections of the IDES and going into a med board, like, you can't go to a NEC board while you're actively in a med board.
Yeah.
It says it. It didn't stop them. Like, they did not, every rule, code, procedure instruction that we have, they ignored. It literally says you cannot send somebody to a NEC board unless they're fit for full duty. Right? So, look, whether you did things wrong or not, you just got to get fit for full duty, and then we're going to send your ass to a NEC board. When you're in a med board, you can't go to an NEC. You're not supposed to go to an NEC board because the outcome of the med board will determine what this person can do. So that's why you wait. All right, do your med board. The guy's done with his med board. Now you can do your NEC board. Because is he fit or not, right? Like, what are you going to do an NEC board on me when I'm 100% disabled, 75 on the DOD side? Like, what's the point? That's why the rule's in there. Well, nope. They just did it on their own in secret. They held the board when I was still in a wheelchair. Couldn't even come. Like,
oh, I've heard of this before. Yeah, where they hold boards with persons not even there, and they're like, yeah.
Well, so I thought that's what happened. Turns out they didn't even hold them. There was no board. There was no board. Nobody convened. There's no paper. There's no documentation. There's no evidence. There's no nothing. Because I didn't come, and I told them, like, hey, I'm in a wheelchair, like bilateral core decompression surgery. I've got, like in-home, like physical therapy, outpatient, like coming to do everything for me. How do you expect me to do this?
Yeah.
Dude, they didn't offer a VTC. They didn't offer anything. Like, I had to get my own ride. Like, and I was just, the NEC board's not mandatory, right? They can't make you go. So that is something that they lean on. Is that, like, well, you don't have to go. We encourage you to go, but you don't have to go. Then in my situation, we even asked why. Why am I going to? They wouldn't even tell me. I could not even get a straight answer from anybody of why are you sending me to an NEC board? I need to know, like, so I can put together some
so I can properly defend myself.
Right. What witnesses do I need to call? Like, what are you like I asked lawyers, like to everybody possible, can you just provide us with a reason of why I'm going to an NEC board? Because I have no NJPs. Like, I was not relieved of positional authority. Like, I'm at a training command, right? Like, I haven't been fit for full duty for the entire time you've been here. I have not done my job. I have not interacted with anybody. What did I do to, like, lose faith and confidence to, like, be an operator? Like, where, how, what, like, where somebody show me, or like you brought up earlier, where's documentation?
Yeah.
You can get rid of people. I mean, if you want to maliciously get rid of some good dudes, you can do it with paper.
Mm-hmm.
All you need is a paper trail. Well, where is it?
They had none.
None. Not a single one. Nothing. And how I found out they pulled my NEC was, and they did this in lightning speed, Eddie. Lightning speed. Like, they had that board on like May 7th or 8th. And by May, I think 17th or 16th, they had it all from ski yachts to group to DFAS to PERS, like that fast. Because the only way I knew my NEC was going is because my next paycheck was like $700.
Damn. So they took it.
Didn't tell me.
Didn't tell you.
Didn't have
and
any.
The only way that
there
you
were
found
no
out is you weren't getting any of the special pays or.
Well, it was way deeper than that because they called me in. They did force me a month later to come in my wheelchair. And I had to find a ride. Like, I had to get another SB to, like, come make these sketchy movements of, like, getting me from my wheelchair into his truck, out of the truck, like, back into the wheelchair. He had to wheel me into, like, Nav Ski Yachts Medical. Like, all because they wanted me there to, like, do more, like, physical and, like, psychological intimidation. They used it as a guise of, like, well, he needs to check in with medical. The chief's like, check in with what? Like, what do you mean? Like, this guy's been so above and beyond corpsman level medical care. Like, what are you going to have him come in here and do?
Give him some Motrin.
Like, what do you want? What are you going to have me, like, you want me to make an assessment of, like the dude had a bunch of holes drilled in his hips. Like, what do you want me to do here? Following orders. Like, so I had to figure out a way to get in there. Because if I didn't, what were they going to do?
Charge a UA.
Yep.
Yep.
So I kept getting, like, and I could see the setup coming. Like, I could see it coming. Like, and I'm just sitting here going, like, why? None of this makes sense of, like, why you guys are doing this. But at the same time, I was like, I'm your Huckleberry, dude. Like, I'm going to fight this. I'm not laying down. And I was either going to die or make it out. One. But I was not. Like, at no point was I going to roll over. Because there was a time, and this really, like, turned me on. Like, it really just kind of, like, saddened me, is when the decent command that was in there, that was just kind of, like, letting things play out how they were.
Yeah.
Who was like, look, this is weird. None of this makes any sense. Just let it play out and, like, get this guy healthy and, you know, let's just sit back and let things happen. They offer you, like, and I think this is standard now when it comes to, like, 112 alpha or, like, drug pops. They offered me this great deal of, hey, dude, if you just say you did it and skip all this stuff, then you'll get your honorable, like, all your, like, we're not going to take anything. Like, you'll just go your own way. Like, you're out. Like, you just got to sign here. And it just says you did everything and that you're taking this, you know, general discharge and you get all your benefits. And, like, you know, we don't have to go through this ADCEP stuff and I can have you out in, like, 2 months, you know. And, man, I looked at him, and that was the first time that, like, you know, I know he was just doing his job, but it was the first time, like, I looked at him and I was like, man, so you're telling me y'all believe that nothing, like, that I didn't do anything wrong here. So why are you willing to just let a multi-million-dollar 15-year asset just sign this and go away? Like, what? That's all it is? Like, nobody cares here. And then I started thinking about it from, like, a managerial business standpoint. It's like, this is what we're doing? We know that we believe that there's a completely reasonable explanation for this little scenario that is minuscule in the grand schemes of what this guy's been through. But yeah, if we don't have to do a ad set board, like, that saves us a lot of time. You could just go about your way. And then I don't lose any of my bonuses. Like, I don't lose, like, all this psychological damage. Like, none of that happens if I just sign and say I did it.
Yeah.
And, dude, it was so disheartening to, like, just think that, like, why are y'all okay with that? You would let me do that? Just throw it away? Like, oh, you know I didn't do anything, but I'm just going to.
It's because it's not about you. They don't give a shit about you. And that's, I mean, and here's the thing, man. And that's a hard thing that's like a big statement to say, but at the end of the day, it really does ring true for most of the times when they make these decisions. They're not thinking about you as a human being. They're not thinking about you or your family. They're thinking about you as and then the reality of things, and this is true, is we are just a number. Like, even though they'll tell us, like, hey, we dump all this money into you, you're an asset, and like, blah, blah, blah. No, man, we're making more of you every day. So what they see you as is a problem. They're like, even though they know you didn't do anything wrong, you're an issue that we are going to have to take time out of our lives to deal with. So instead of having to do that, which is the right thing to do, they're like, you just sign this and just say you did it, and you can go on your merry way. Which, what they're not taking into account is the human factor, which is you being like, no, I didn't fucking do anything wrong. I put more blood, sweat, and tears and equity into getting to where I am right now.
Yep.
And I'm not going to take this, because not only that, it will affect you the rest of your life. It affects your family.
It will, because what they don't tell you is, like, sure, it does say general, honorable, all that other stuff. But if
someone delved in,
if you dig a little bit deeper at the back side, it's going to say, disciplinary, like, drug use, whatever.
Which is something that you're going to have to explain to future jobs.
Yep.
Like,
now, look, a lot of people they're not going to go there. Like, I get it, but it wasn't even about that, because I thought, believe me, they knew by that time, like, I had a lawyer, and they were like, yeah, let your lawyers think it over. And I walked out of there thinking, like, you know what? Maybe this isn't, like, I've been doing this for, 13 years now. Like, maybe I just need to go. Like, I've had buddies trying to get me out into the private sector for a while. Like, Neil was trying for a while. I was like, man, maybe I just sign this and just go about my business, man. Like, I don't need to do this anymore. Mm-hmm. Like, I've checked off all my boxes. I don't have anything else to prove. And then I had two buddies that were like, yeah, just sign it, dude. I got you. Just come work here, whatever. You want to know what changed it all? Literally 3 days, maybe a week later, I found out about the baby. That made everything, like, I wasn't going to just sign knowing that it wasn't true.
Yeah.
Right? Like, without the kid aspect, like, I think I might have done it. Like, I really do. Like, I might have just been like, you know what?
What about having a kid made you want to do the right thing, or, like, go take the route that is probably the hardest to take?
It's probably hard to quantify that. But I think the best, prior was just me. It was just me and the wife.
Yeah.
Right? This made it to where, like, hey, this was unexpected. Like, we didn't think this could even happen. But this person was going to ask me about this eventually, potentially. And I needed to be able to tell, like, look him in the eyes and be like, yeah, this is what I did.
Yeah.
Like, whole time. Like, and I didn't give up. Like, I didn't roll over. I just kept fighting. I still don't think I've won, right? Like, minus being alive. But the kid just changed. Like, I don't know what. I mean, maybe you have some insight on that, but I was kind of ready to be like, you know what? I don't need this. I'm out.
I think, well, my insight, and this is because I feel the same way, especially with when we were going through all of our stuff, because we were given, I was given opportunities to, hey, just do this. And
Yep.
I'm like, I could not look my children in the eye and say, hey, I gave up. It was too much for me. And
Right.
that's not setting the example that I would want my kids, like the backbone I want my kids to have. And it'll become, hereditary or however you want to call it. It's like if your kids see you, oh, he gave up, he just did what he was told, most likely they're going to fall into some scenario where they're going to do the same thing. But if you set the example, and no matter how hard it is, and your kids will hear the story of what you went through and be like, I fought tooth and nail to the very end, that sets the standard for them. Mm-hmm. And it's like, this is what a man does or a woman does when you're put in a situation like this, and
Yep.
you know you're in the right, and you are climbing this uphill mountain where everybody's like throwing stones at you on the way up, and they're just constantly knocking you down, and you have to keep like going forward. That's the kind of individual that I would want my kids to be. But the only way that they can be that way is if they see me do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
You gotta see it. And like, man, I didn't put it together like at the time, really. Like, I did know that I didn't really, because of how things went, that I didn't want to, like, regardless of all these injuries, like, I knew that internally I was not coming back from this. Some of the like, they wanted to, like, I mean, I even had like a ops senior was like, my job's to get you back healthy and like back out on the boats. And I'm like, dude, that's not happening. Like, let's just be real with ourselves. Now, I did know that with all this, I didn't like having a kid and like what has went on, and I didn't want any part of that anymore.
Yeah.
I didn't want to expose her to any of it. I didn't want
Well, it's tainted. It's everything you believed in, and it happened to me. And it happens to multiple individuals. We have this belief in whatever NSW, right? You're like the brotherhood and all these things that are just drilled into us from day one of like, and they're all great. Like, I honestly believed all of it up until what I went through, and I don't regret one day that I served, even with everything that happened. I'm like,
Same.
What I had was magical, and like, I almost feel bad for people that don't have that in their lives, that never push themselves to be a part of a group like that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when that is ripped from you, when you get to pull back the curtain and see how the hot dogs are made, mm-hmm. and you're like, that's not what I thought this was. It is it's almost like life-shattering to the individual, to you, or to the individual that gave everything to be a part of that community or be a part of that brotherhood. And so because I had the same thing. When I was done with all my shit, I was like, half jokingly, I was like, yeah, put me back to work. Like, let's go. And they like looked at me and they're like, dude, you're not working here anymore.
Sure.
But half of me, like, if you would have told me that beforehand, I would have been like, what? But when they were like, yeah, that ain't happening, I was like, all right. Because I was like, this isn't what I thought it was.
No, and I'm struggling. Maybe you can provide some insight on this, but like one of the main, things struggling with is like, okay, 15 years, like, for what? For what? And not even just on my personal like deal, but look what we've done. Like this entire, GWAT, like how we ran away and tucked tail and like left places, and we sacrificed, some of the best dudes, women, men on the planet over the last 25 years for what? Like, and I'm looking back at all of this, we've done, and to watch, I'm just having a hard time, like, with.
No, and you should, and you're not the only one. There's plenty of dudes that served in the GWAT that are all struggling with that same question, like, what did I just do all that for? Or what did I lose friends for?
Yep.
And those are definitely the questions, that naturally come that you should be asking. If you weren't asking those questions, then it's like, well, what's wrong with you? But at the end of the day, what I try and look at it in a more optimistic view, because I'm like, you can go down the negative road all day and be like, yep, this was fucked, blah, 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 and like put yourself in a hole, and then you're going to have to climb out of it at some point. I try, and the optimistic view is what we were doing overseas, take the politics, take all the corruption, all that bullshit out of it. There was pure evil going on over there. And I'm like, and we got to get rid of it. Everybody that was involved.
Yeah. Okay.
That right there to me, and then, and people can be like, well, there's evil all over the country. I got it, yes, but I signed up, I volunteered to go to war. That's all I wanted.
Several times.
Yes.
You volunteered.
Well,
on
yeah,
top
and
of volunteering on top. Right.
But that's what I wanted.
Yep.
And so I got that. I feel privileged that I was able to like partake in the GWAT, even though it wasn't what it all turned out to be. But I can't. When I look back at my life, I'm like, I don't regret it, dude, because the experiences that I had, I mean, there's 0.1% of this world that will never have that.
Nope.
They'll never have that experience. So for me to like, oh, it was all for nothing. No, it wasn't all for nothing. It was like everything that I had dreamed of is everything that I wanted. I got to serve with the best individuals that this country has to offer. And at the end of the day, yeah, was it all like what we thought?
No.
But at the same time, I wouldn't take any of it back.
No.
And I know my friends that died over there, they wouldn't take it back either. No. Even if they knew the outcome, they would still go do the same thing.
Yeah, and I've being older and look, I'm not happy right now, right? I was out in
Dude, you just went
January 1st, right?
You're brother, you are so fresh.
Yeah.
Like
okay.
You are a open wound.
I've
right
said
now.
this, and like I'll say it like on record, is that look, I'm not gonna say that in 5 years, 10 years, whatever, 20 years, I don't look back at all this completely different. Like right now, I have a very bad outlook, and like I wasted like 15 years of my life, and like I did this and that and whatever, but I still wouldn't change that. Just like you said, like, because like the things I did, some of the skill sets I have, the people, like that's the dudes, the boys.
Yeah.
You don't find that. Like, you don't find friends like that.
No.
Like anywhere else, but in this community, like period. And I'll never, like the ones that got me on this, like I wouldn't be here had I not made like good friends, like in the community, other operators. So I don't regret it, obviously in that standpoint,
yes.
Right? And I think I'm going to have a more favorable view long term.
Time heals all wounds, and I can say that because, dude, I'm looking at you, man, and it's written on your face. I was there.
I was there, dude. Like stay
and
a little, like
give yourself patience, man. Like you're allowed to feel this way. First off, don't feel shameful or like guilt because you're like, I'm angry. You have every right to be angry for the way that you were treated. What you went through, just listening. I mean, what you went through is a fucking horrendous ordeal of like physical, emotional pain that wasn't anything that you did. It's just, it happened. But then the way that you were treated, I mean, all of that encapsulated, yes, you have every right to be angry. But what I will tell you this, man, is, and I learned this the hard way, which I learned everything,
I'm right there with you.
That pain or that anger is going to do you. It's the only thing it's going to hurt is you. Nobody is going to care, dude, at the end. Like, and I'll say that for your wife and your kid, they want you to be okay. Mm-hmm. And that's where when I was angry for a good, I mean, I still get little tinges of it, you're like, dude, I got fucked, like, or just if I have to think about it. But at the end of the day, I was like, dude, I am no good to my wife and kids if I am ruminating on this nonstop. Like, this shit happened to me. It was unfair. Life is unfair.
Yep.
You need to take, even though it doesn't feel like a victory at times, but you climbed a mountain of like pain to just, now you've crested it and now you're over the horizon. And I was like, you can either go back down that same side of the mountain and go back to where you were,
right,
or keep moving forward and be like, dude, I'm going to make the best of this. But there's ways you have to process it. And that's the other hard part, is like sitting back and actually processing what happened. Why am I feeling this way? What makes me angry the most? And is there anything I can do about it? No, probably not. So I have to move forward, man. And that right there, like once you find the strength to move forward, one, you can start helping others. Like even by telling your story is helping others, because you're not the only. There's so many individuals in the military that go through this.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah,
it's super unfortunate.
And be the leader, like you're leading by example. It's like, dude, freaking Jay went through hell and back, and now he's pushing forward and he's being successful or making something of himself. Yep. I can do that then, after what he went through.
And that's the like. And a lot of that's part of, like, without friends like Neil, my buddy Adam, brother, like, those things like got me here and I made it, right? But now I'm looking at, like, guys like yourself, or all that stuff, like, you gotta let the like anger go. Like, you can't just stay.
It eats at you, dude. It just eats at you and doesn't. And
yep. And you got to temper your, like, look, you got to want to get back at these guys, or you want to like show them, like, all right, what's that going to do? What's that going to do for your wife or your kid? Like, how are you making like your wife and kids' lives better, like every day, or progressing forward? With me, it's a lot of physical stuff, right? Like, I have to get these hips fixed. Like, I have to get like my shoulders fixed, my neck and back, like all this stuff's jacked up that you would have thought would have been fixed, like coming out of some of this stuff. But here I am, just ejected abruptly. Like, they had me out in, like, I think from the day they finalized the med board, like 32 days. I did. They expedited everything, TAPS class, like all that stuff that you're supposed to have to like go through and whatever.
Oh yeah.
Dude, which I found hilarious when they're like putting me through these courses and going, hey, like, in your experience, are you getting set up for success to get out and you're financially stable and physically ready to go find a new job? And I'm like, no, I'm none of that. Like, you guys caused all this. Like, you just had me burn through $65,000. That's mine. You ruined me medically. And now you're having me sit through a course that's like, we want to make sure you're prepared to exit the Navy on 2 feet. And I'm like, what? How is this, like, how are y'all even making me go through some of this stuff? Like, sit through these courses knowing what y'all did.
Yeah. And well, then when you say, no, I'm not ready, they're probably like, okay, I'll see ya.
No, yeah. There is no, like, I started answering truthfully at first to some of these people, and then I was just like, whatever, just give me the stuff. The faster I can get away from you people and, like, start my own life and, like, go get real medical help and, like, make my own path. Like, man, I've been night and day since literally January 1st, December 31st, when I was done, like, DD 214 in hand, out of the military, and I was able to start seeing real civilian doctors, like, on my own. Like, I've made, like, just getting in with Emory, like, hard push of physical therapy, like, I'm making progress. Like, I'm not good by any means, and it's going to take a long time, but that isolation, the abandonment, everything that was stripped, like, I sat in that for 2 years, Eddie.
Yeah.
Like, just to the point. And I think I've pretty much got, like, most of this stuff out of, what happened, some of the people that did this, and, like, I'm just trying to get them held accountable. Like, there were investigations and, like, IG stuff in Congress, and It appears just nobody cares.
No, the IGs don't do shit.
And nobody, that NSW IG is compromised. Hands down.
Oh, I know.
Hands down. Do not. If you think you're going to put an IG together, do not do that.
They're going to laugh at it.
They are going, it doesn't matter how, Jags, did I put together a legit IG, that everything that I said had a PDF of the receipt, tied to it.
They're like, we see no wrongdoing.
That, or they blamed a bunch of the medical stuff. They tried to be like, yeah, that's really bad, but we don't do that. Like that Snyder, that Lieutenant Stephanie Snyder lady, the psych, she wrote fake write-ups, like a evaluation that didn't happen. She wrote it, submitted it into my medical record. She breached. Once I did have the positive, that starts this whole you got to go to this DAPA screening nonsense and to see if you're this habitual drug user. So I do all that, right? Because I'm not, and I answer everything. Mm-hmm. So that lady, the Group 4 psych, breached those records, which are the highest level of medical PII, TSSCI level, anything that's DAPA, drugs, alcohol, sexual abuse, anybody that you're going there, you can't, even if you're a medical professional, outside of
you got to put in a FOIA request or something.
No, you cannot get any of that, period. None of that is for you. Now, you can look at it, if she had to be able to just look at something, but you can't access it. You can't pull it out of there. You can't share it. You damn sure can't disseminate it with the CO and group and Warcom. That's exactly what they did. And what burned them is they disseminated a lie. The thing she breached, that Stephanie Snyder, breached from my medical record, was more incompetence from Gulfport of a piece of paper that said that I refused treatment. They just put a note in that was they had it in restricted in behavioral health records that said I refused drug treatment. And I was like, what do you mean? I went, I filled out your paper. It's a whole 30-page packet. I filled it out. I went, I talked to my lawyer afterward. You can't not go to those, right? If you blow them off, then you do get ADCEPT.
Yeah.
You have to go. They make an assessment. You say what, obviously in my situation, who's going to assess me to go to a treatment facility? Nobody. Right? So I fill everything out, turn it in, do everything I'm supposed to do there. I leave. And apparently because just more incompetence, they put this letter, just nothing else, just standalone, just this letter into my file that said, I refuse treatment. That's it.
Nothing backing it up.
Nothing backing it up. And we didn't even find that for almost a year. Because I started noticing that the psych, Stephanie Snyder, kept bringing up, because I was able to access her notes on me, right? Any session I had with her, I can go get them. And be hey, print them out. She kept putting in her notes about refusing to go to this treatment plan. And I'm what are you talking about? I didn't refuse anything. I went, filled the paperwork out. They said, see you later, because I obviously don't have any kind of substance abuse problem. And I went on my way. Well, we didn't know anything about it, that letter was put in my med records file and it was restricted. Corman ended up finding that, and he found it when we kept seeing this Snyder lady saying that I refused substance abuse treatment, which is something that'll get you kicked out for. If you have a problem and they got you dead to rights and they're trying to help you, and you say no, they'll kick you. You go to an ADCEPT board and you get kicked out. But there's a whole bunch of paperwork behind it. There's the original paperwork you filled out. There's an assessment that's hey, this is the level of abuse that we think you need. You have to sign it. It goes to your command. It goes to your command medical. They sign all sorts of stuff. You sign. It's a whole big package that then goes in. If you refused to do this.
Yeah.
Nothing. None of that in there.
So you got medically retired?
Mm-hmm.
Did you got disability?
100%, yeah.
Okay. So you have your retirement, you have your disability. The only thing you're...
No. You only get one.
Okay. So that's...
Yeah, this is something that people probably don't realize. If you're not off 4 or 5, something like that, and you're sub 20 years and you get medically retired, you are not going to make enough money. You only get one of the other. You are never going to get pension or retirement and your disability. Mm-hmm. If you're enlisted, like a 6, 7, like whatever, because you kind of get an option, right? I'm 15 years, right? So what is the retirement of E6, 15 years? You let's just use $3,000.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, they would give me that, but my 100% VA is like $4,300. So whatever
the highest one is, they go with
is what you get, right? So on a med retirement side, if you're sub 20 years and you're enlisted, you're 100% disabled. Like you're never going to go over $4,300 on the retirement side to pick the other one, because they will give you, if you're an officer and let's say your retirement is $6,000, and that 40, they'll pay you the difference. Like you'll get it all. But for an enlisted guy, you're only going to get your disability. If your disability is 100%, you're going to get your $4,200, and that's it.
Okay.
Your retirement's never going to equal $4,400.
So right now you're getting the disability.
That's it. Yep. That's all I qualify for, and that's all I'll ever get.
But on paper, it says you medically retired,
yep.
Right? Honorably?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. I get I got the CAT card, retired CAT card. I get on base and,
VA benefits?
Yes, but I'm not using those.
Oh, right? I'm not saying you should, but...
Because what the retirement did do, the medical retirement, is it gives me who knows what you're using, but when you get 20, you're eligible for TRICARE Select.
Yeah, yep.
So same thing with me.
Okay.
And I have that. So I'm just paying, right? Like it's good. Like it's good stuff.
No, it's good to have. Yeah.
But, now when I look at it of I'm going to physical therapy and I'm paying Emory, no, I'm paying. Like I have co-pays and deductibles and stuff. Like I'm paying for all this stuff that you guys, that my 15 years of service cost. It's fine because it's, in the grand scheme of things, it's just like having decent insurance at, a power company or whatever. Cool with me, but it does kind of sting, right? When I'm walking out of physical therapy for my hips and shoulders and I'm, running $40 co-pays that I'm paying. Yeah. And it's man, whatever. But what was my other option? Stay in the Navy and let them try to fix all this? No.
Not after, I wouldn't either after what they did.
Because, let's be real. I'm sure at some point that would have been an option if I was going to just demand that, nope, you must fix both shoulders, both, I don't know, I'm going to stay in until you fix it. But why would I do that? These guys were, they were on a soft assassination attempt. I was isolated for 2 years. I had no friends, no, just me and the wife trying to, survive and raise a baby and me heal. There's no way I was going to subject myself to 2 more years of them trying to get me. And the only reason they didn't get me is because I self-isolated.
Yeah. What does accountability look like for you?
Man, accountability's been the same. It's been the same since I asked. And fortunately for me, I'm taking a lot of this now, and I'm getting myself proper and adequate medical coverage. So one of the things I wanted was that, proper medical coverage. Accountability, we did everything. This Lieutenant Stephanie Snyder lady, we filed ethics violations, also my wife did, all sorts of stuff. like on her for like the things she did, like trying to have me locked up, like for no reason. Nothing happened. If anything, they either promoted her or just hid her over at DG because like they couldn't hide from like Commonwealth of Virginia, like the American psychological, whatever. They did a full like investigation into her because I wasn't the only one that like had complaints. I think I had more dead to rights documents on her of like, look, she submitted this, it's record, I own it. She's giving advice and doing an evaluation on somebody that did not talk to her.
Yeah.
There's a whole write-up. The night that they tried to have me locked up, and I just went in there and was like, my lawyer said, I'm not allowed to talk to you. That's it. Like 3 times I said that, and there was nothing else. Like I left. Like I went downstairs, and I never saw her again. I was like, that's, respectfully, ma'am, like I'm not allowed to have any conversations with you, like without a proper witness. Yeah. And there's not, so I don't have anything to say. That's it. She wrote a whole evaluation that like we had some sort of conversation and that she evaluated me. And then Leclerc used that to like isolate me into ops, like try to say I couldn't go around students or like weapons. And then nobody even told me because I'm sitting there going like, why are y'all doing this? Like isolating me into like ops and stuff. Because when I refused to sit down with her, like when they recalled me, they basically said, well, if you don't sit down with her, then you have to go to like a civilian like hospital. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, my lawyer said to tell you guys, like, I'm good, I'm going home, like I'm building a crib for my baby. Like, I don't understand what the problem is here. That was they were basically trying to get me to leave. Mm-hmm. And then they were going to hit me with like, some kind of UCMJ of just not following a direct order of like the CO or something.
Yeah.
Or they were going to get me to go to a psych evaluation, and they were gambling that some civilian place was going to see that like military brought me or whatever. And, maybe they were just going to commit me or put me on some kind of hold just because. Never know. So I saw that playing out, and I was like, all right, we're going to Tulane. We go to Tulane. I talked to I have to go through all this stuff. They literally stripped me of, like, all my clothes and, like, nuts. But when I finally talked to, like, a real, like, psych, dude, she's livid. Just absolutely furious about what's happened, how I've been brought here. Like, she was demanding that, like, Leclerc could get put on the phone because ultimately he ordered me to go there. Because the Snyder lady, whatever, you're a line. You can't order me.
No, she has no.
But she played it, like, off of him. But I made the smart move and made that chief come with me, and I'll let him stay in for most of it. So when I get out of there, long story short, I'm able to have like a real conversation, intelligent, articulate conversation with the site and be like, this is all insane. To the point where she was like upset because she was like, this is a crime, right? In the civilian world, you can't just with no reason send people for like psych holds. And you guys have nothing. There's nothing here. The only person that had a conversation with you all day was the corpsman, who's here with you now that says this is not good and you don't need to be here and this is very bad. And he tried to tell her, Leclerc, all of them, that this is ridiculous and you are making everything way worse. Do not do this.
Yeah.
Nope. Yeah. Either he's going to leave and tell us to kick rocks and we're going to write him up like UCMJ, or hopefully somebody's going to like lock him up.
Yeah. I mean, and that's part of the process when they target you.
Yeah, and the sick side is, I had a 2-hour conversation with that Snyder lady. I told her all about the the pain and the PTSD stuff that it was causing, the torture in the Kiesler, like she knew everything and then exploited it and then shared it with Leclerc for him to exploit it. Yeah. And then they tried to when they could, this is the most disgusting, dishonest thing about the whole crew of them, Posey, Leclerc, Snyder. whatever. Maybe even Tim Geary was the Group 4 CO at the time that like signed off on some of this stuff. What they did with have you ever heard of a BIOTS attempt? Like
no what?
A BIOTS attempt?
No.
So because when you come out of an ADCEP 3.0, no basis, like no misconduct, there's nothing else that can be done to you. You go back to work. There's like a whole, if you were to look up the like CO's legal handbook, like it'd show you like a whole graph of like, okay, what do you do after an ADCEP? Like there's the outcome. Mm-hmm. There's only one scenario when it's a 3.0, no basis, no misconduct, that box is isolated. Like it goes nowhere else. Service member goes back to work. There's one caveat where it's like, hey, if you found out a whole bunch of other like evidence and stuff that the board didn't have prior, if you have hard evidence, you can send it to NAVPER, whatever. That's it. There's one little caveat of this is the only way around it. Nope, he didn't care. And this is where I don't know if it's the lawyer or him in the hubris and the arrogance, but they attempted a BIOTS attempt, which is basically asking Naval Personnel Command to separate me under the best interest of the service. So that's a DOD-wide thing you can do. And it's the most underhanded, dishonest, disgusting things that you will ever see, that this guy went to the lengths of doing this because there is zero legal precedence for it. It is laughable. It's a joke. The only thing it did was make him look like a fool. It did cause a lot more psychological, like pain, suffering. It hurt me, right? Him doing this whole attempt, this BIOTS attempt.
Yeah.
It stretched everything out. It stretched like the med board was done in August, but they couldn't do anything until this PERS decision came back. And it took them 10 months to be like, yeah, dude, you can't do any of this. Like, this is the stupidest piece of paper we've ever seen.
Yeah.
But he still did it anyway. And it was only done like to cause more damage to me and my family.
Yeah. Because at that point, it's all about his ego. And, yeah.
Well, it even got worse. He tried to include that stuff, the PERS stuff, into my med board because there's something called a non-medical assessment that the CO does when it comes to a med board. So CO puts a piece of paper together that's a non-medical assessment, and this is whatever, talking about you. Of course, this guy just makes up all sorts of nonsense on mine. He throws in that, like, he puts the ADCEP board stuff in there, the NEC board, that he's removing my pin, and then all sorts of wild, like legit lies that I caused every injury that I have to myself, like on my own, and that I refuse to see doctors, and that I'm not like just abject lies that are so provable, like. But he didn't care. He just got to say, but you know what my lawyer said he did with that, because he was trying to put it in my med board package. And even the med board people were like, this is odd. This isn't where this goes. Like, what do you want us to do here?
This guy sounds like a fucking moron.
He was trying to petition the med board to award me a 0% VA rating.
Yeah.
That's what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
Now, again, everybody was like laughing at him, and that's the stupidest thing possible, and it's not going to happen. But that's what he was trying to do.
Oh yeah. Well, because again, and I've this is the problem. This is the problem with shitty leaders. Is you get shitty leaders like that, and they refuse to, like, they will not hold themselves accountable. Mm. They refuse to admit they made a mistake because their ego is too big. And so once they go after somebody and the facts come out that the person they're going after is actually, they're like, this dude did nothing wrong, they'll double down. And then they start making up shit because they're like, there's no way that I'm going to look bad on this. Yeah. And it, your whole story comes back to cover your ass. It's they did all this shit to you wrong medically, caused all these symptoms that you're having. And instead of being like, hey, let's figure out how to get this guy healthy again and fix our mistakes.
That's all I wanted. Like, the whole
they're going to
time.
be like, no, we need to make sure we're protecting the institution.
There it is. There's the word.
Yeah. That's all it comes down to is protecting the institution, man. And
that's what my conclusion is. And is, to jump back into what did it look like to me, accountability. I want somebody needs to, without somebody that is not institution first, because that's what happened. That's who's at group. That's who's at Warcom. Look, this Leclerc, Snyder, Posey, like, those are the type of military's filled with it. They're infected and like they gotta go.
Yeah.
Like you've got to see. We've got to get these people out of there, or this is never going to change. So,
I think on a positive note, that's what's going to start happening. I don't think it's going to be as fast as we want it to be, but there's wheels in motion right now.
I'm glad to hear that, and this is another thing that I'd like that is actually, they like to start a lot of these little pilot programs and like, what are we going to do with NSW because we're so small?
Yeah.
I think this is a good place. Like if come into NSW and clean it up, like it would give a good template of what you can do on like a larger scale. 'Cause I don't see how, like, that's how we got in my situation. That's how we got into your situation where they're like literally going to lock you up for doing your job downrange.
Yeah.
Because of the Leclercs, the Posies, the Snyder, that's our problem.
It's institutionalists. First off, they're all politicians in uniform.
Yep.
And the second is they know in order to promote, in order to move up that career ladder, they have to protect the institution at all costs. And if that means burning good dudes below them, they're willing to do that. You're worthy of the sacrifice in order so they can put on that star.
Yep.
And that is the problem that needs to be fixed. But that, I think, and this is my honest opinion, that needs to start at an institutional level such as Annapolis,
yes.
West Point.
Yes.
They need to have somebody come in there and be like, the way that you guys are handling business, and it happens in the big Navy, it happens in the Army, it happens everywhere. It's like, this needs to stop right now. They need to have a civilian come in there that is not tied to the institution, look at the curriculum of what they're putting out, of what they're teaching these young cadets. Like, hey, this is how you lead. This is how, because right now
there's nothing. It's just woke. Like they turned us into a giant social experiment of like, let's try and do all this other nonsense. Like making elite warfighters is like 11th on the list. That's not even. I wouldn't. I think that's being generous. Okay.
Yeah. But until that happens, man, and right now I know it's the idea of it is in process, but I think it's such a hard road because the military is so tainted, and it's infected on the deepest levels that it's going to take a lot of time to carve out that cancer and reinstitute, like, hey, this is what real leaders do. And this is what leadership is taking care of the men and women below you.
Right.
And giving them like the benefit of the doubt. And this whole zero tolerance policy and all this crap. I'm like, dude, I get it. Like if someone's smoking crack or doing meth and doing something, yes, okay, dude, you're a fucking idiot.
Yeah, yeah.
But like the whole thing when it came back, oh, you got an alcohol-related incident, you're gone. And it's like, dude, the people that are handing out those punishments
have
multiple, ARIs, and it's like, so you're no longer. There's no room for bouncing back anymore.
Apparently not.
Yeah, it's like, hey, the days of handing out a punishment that someone's like affected by but can also bounce back is gone.
There is room, and there was room for bouncing back if you were if you fit the narrative or you fit the agenda or the political narrative of, okay, like we'll bounce this guy back. If it like me, no, like, you're out.
So right now you're out, you're trying to get all your medical appointments and everything. What help do you need?
Well, Neil just helped me out a whole lot with some stuff that we'll talk about that was huge. I'd say the main help that I probably need right now is like putting this out there and seeing if anybody that isn't compromised or isn't institution first wants to help me get some of my like 45 grand back. That would be nice. Medically, I'm with Emory. Like, we've got a plan for both hips, but we're still triaging stuff, right? We haven't even went to shoulders, neck, back, like any of that stuff. We got to get my hips done, like, first and have a whole plan. Outside of that, shoulders, now I'm looking at, like, man, like, can I do, like, plasma shots, or, like, can I get in with, like, any of these other I talked a little bit with the Navy SEAL Foundation and another guy named like Phil out of like a SOCOM Foundation, where they work to like fly some dudes out like California or something, where they do some of these non-invasive, where I'm not getting surgeries.
Yeah,
like
stem cell.
I don't know. Like, look, pending this NDAA, like, look, if there comes a time that I have the money to take my ass to do stem cells, and I'm going to do it, like, myself, I'll spend all the money in the world. Like, right now, I don't. Like, I'm not looking forward to, 2 years worth of surgery and recoveries. If I could get around shoulder surgery, that would be great.
Does the Navy SEAL Foundation help out with the boat teams as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Let's talk about them real quick too, because they actually, I sent them some messages about like what was going on, and they were appalled. They wanted to know why I was never submitted into the. There's something medically that when you're active, if you have all sorts of weird problems or whatever, where you need extra medical help, like the SEAL Foundation will do a whole bunch of stuff for you, but you need to be submitted while you're active. They were very confused at why my case, like, they'd never heard of somebody with this much problem not be submitted to them so they could help take care of them.
Yeah.
Which hurt me in the back end, because now that I'm out, they can't do as much for me. Now, they did like cut me a $2,500 check. And they were like, hey, I hope this helps. And I was like, thanks, I guess. And they did ask how they could help. And I'm like, well, I'm kind of looking at like the medical side of things now. I mean, if anybody wants to get the military to give me the money that's mine, financially, even, you remember when Neil sent you the stuff I sent to pipe hitters? Like, my first request was like, I don't even think I need money here. I just need help with this other stuff. And then, finding out more about what pipe hitter, like, oh, well, y'all, that's really a financial thing. Like, what you need help for, can't nobody help you with, man. Like, getting these people to leave you alone, and CO to stop trying to have a soft assassination attempt. Like, there's not a lot we can do for you. Like, any of these foundations, Navy SEAL, pipe hitters, doesn't matter.
No, they're.
Now that I'm out, like, okay, yeah, cool. Like, but I also look at it as like, okay, I'm out, I survived. Does somebody else need it more than me? And I just want to like push it.
Because you had Sullivan.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, we were talking to him while yours was going on he's a fantastic lawyer.
He's jam up, good guy.
Yeah. And that was, because we were like, hey, what can we do? And he was like, hey, everything's getting done. And this is the hard part, is he knows it. He's like, he's going to be okay. But obviously, it's not the outcome that everybody wants, but it never is. And we knew that. We're like, yeah, like that's part of the thing that nobody talks about, is especially with our foundation and going, what we deal with, and it's a lot. There's a lot of things that go on in NSW, and we helped out multiple individuals. Is there's never any closure. It's not like, hey, okay, I was wronged, and now I have accountability. It's like, then that's where the real work starts. Is, and then we just talked about that. Is like you have to find that closure yourself. But what I think can be done, man, especially you need medical help. You're banged up because of what the military did to you, and not just like, oh well, from jumping and doing all the stuff that the job entails.
There's a lot of that, but
there is no. They fucked you over medically in the hospital, and put you on all sorts of drugs that destroyed your body. We need to find a way to get you treated that you're not paying out of pocket for it.
Yeah, that'd be nice. But But you know how we are too, as far as like asking for help and like taking help from people, and it's like, man, okay. But like, look, I'm not better than look, there's no more ego. Like that's been gone for a long time. Like I'll take help where I can get it, and I'm damn sure about giving it back. Like to anybody, like, you come across a guy in a similar situation as mine, dude, give my number. Like I'm at a point now where I can, like, I'm not better by any means, but, I can talk about this, like, somewhat, I think, keep the emotions a little, like, checked, and maybe just help some dudes get through it, because that's the main and the hardest part is, like, you're not supposed to survive this.
No.
Like, you weren't, I wasn't, like, look, if everything went right, we would have fixed their problems on our own ourselves. And they were going to do everything in their power to nudge us along that line. And, like, that's just gross. Like, I can't.
Well, that's, and that's the dark part of it is they could care less if you put a gun in your mouth.
No, and to watch it, like.
And I used to think, I'm like, dude, do they know they're doing this? And I'm like, yes, they do. I've seen it so many times now. I'm like, it's a fact. They know. They're like, just, in their minds, like, yeah, go kill yourself. Like, go. Yep. Here's your bottle of medications. We don't give a shit if you put a gun in your mouth.
Yep.
And that's another issue that's I don't know how that is going to be solved, because it's not even dudes that go through legal issues. That's just dudes
period
that retire, and then they're like they put them on all these medications before they retire, all these antipsychotics and whatever else, and then it's like, see ya. Have fun dealing with that.
Yep.
17 prescriptions. And by the way, don't ask us for help.
Nope.
Yeah. But dude, I'll tell you what. There are some things I'm going to point you in a couple directions, dude. When we're done with this, that I think could benefit you for sure. That'll just help you keep going.
I mean, that's the plan. And like, a lot of what you said is what I'm tracking on. Like, I'm letting go of like a lot of the like anger and I got to get like, look, dude, just get healthy, take care of your family, keep doing what you're doing. Like, look, I don't think anybody believes that I'm not going to like hit the ground running and like do some big things down the road here. But that is my revenge, right?
Yes. Success is a revenge, dude.
Like, that's it.
That's the best revenge.
You know what, Eddie? I don't even want to call it revenge.
No.
I don't want reconciliation.
Yeah.
That's what I just want, reconciliation for the things that were wrong. Hopefully we can somewhat righten them. And if not, can we at least help dudes not go through this?
Yeah.
Like, that's really the end game of, I survived it. Now, can I help
other people survive it?
Yep.
Yeah. And that's what I don't know what you believe, but that's like the Christian thing to do too, man.
It's I mean, like, man, this whole, like, I was born and raised like Catholic and stuff, but with some of this stuff, like, and some of everything that's happened, like, made me much more, like, I don't want to say faithful because I don't think I ever, like, lost anything, but just the sheer amount of, like, things that were getting piled on, I was like, man, there's no way all this is being done, and I'm not meant to, like, survive it. like
Yep.
beat it, like get the daughter out of it, raise her, like. But maybe it's a test. Maybe the whole thing. Maybe all this is just giant test of like, okay, you did selection, you did all this stuff, you thought you were like good to go, but now you got to do all this, and it's like, all right, well,
Yeah. Well, God doesn't put anything on your plate that He knows you can't
I
handle.
believe that.
And that's the truth. And sometimes you're like, there's no fucking way He's letting this happen to me right now. But it is true, man. And God has a plan for you. I believe it, and I think you're on the path right now. And I'll say my wife gave me the best advice right when I came out of all that shit. It was, you do nothing for this first year but take care of yourself. Like, you need to get healthy before you can even start trying to help others. Because I was like, dude, we need to help everybody else that's getting screwed. And she's like, you can't do anything until you yourself are set in the right place. And it was true. So
And I know I'm not there. Like, I'm
No,
well
and that's
aware
fine.
that I'm not.
You're
I'm
fresh
also
out,
aware.
dude.
Yeah, I'm also aware that like I can't do it all on my own either.
No.
And yeah, just keep working. Just keep moving forward. And like, I have to believe that, like, the world karma or whatever. Like, just keep doing what got me to where I got myself. And like, at the end of the day, this got to work out how it's supposed to.
It will, man.
At least that's what I keep telling myself.
What are you doing now?
As far as
Like, are you working?
no, I think I'm looking for some stuff.
Okay.
Like, the plan was like, take this year, hit the surgeries hard, the physical therapies, the recoveries, and like hit
fix
it
yourself.
hard, and let's see where we're at in a year. And like, do I have a new baseline of like, hey, this is my new 100%. It's 40, but okay. At least I can go, walk around for more than an hour and I don't need a cane. Right?
Yeah.
Or, I can do some like physical things. I don't know if I'm going to be able to stick to that. Like, I may have to make some adjustments because, bottom line, look, when it comes down to it, like, look, I'm a grown man. I got a wife, I got a kid. Like, I get $4,000 a month. Like, I'm supposed to support myself, like a wife and a kid on that. And I can't work. Like, I got to make something happen, right? I can't just, now look, I got good friends, good family. Like, I got a support system. Like, we ain't homeless. We're fine. But for me, like, there's some opportunities that potentially there. Like, I got to make some things happen. And I just don't know if I can take this year and get healthy and not, like, take care of the family, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it doesn't mean like completely abandon like the get healthy, but it's looking like I'm going to have to.
Well, you can start inserting, like, as soon as you start getting a little
Right.
better, inserting ways to, like, okay, now I can start making some money, doing some things on the side here. Because that is also, you as a man, you're going to have to do that regardless. You got to find.
Well, dude, how do you think it's been like for literally 2 years? Like, I've had no job.
Oh,
Like,
I know.
I'm not going in anywhere. They just like isolated me in my house. Like, there you go. Let's wait for you to mess up.
Yeah.
So we can, kick you out. So, yeah, I get that. And like, you go crazy, like not having any purpose. Like,
No, you're
function.
chewing the carpet. Yeah.
I mean, I used it to my advantage. This backfired for them, but it left me with my daughter's 16 months, April 1st. I have literally spent every day, all day, like me and her mom. Like, she's had two parents basically for her entire life, all day, every day.
That's
no
a blessing.
daycare, no nothing. Like, we had to get a nanny, like an in-home nanny for a little while I was like in a wheelchair and like physically couldn't do anything with two torn shoulders and stuff. But, I was very adamant about that. And then because of what Leclerc did, they basically were just like, yeah, don't come in, but don't go anywhere and just stay at your house. And okay, well, you made it to where I've got to spend every single day, like, just being a dad. and that's invaluable.
Yes.
And that's what's kept me from like not like having like a, you know, a duty, responsibility, a job outside of like.
Well, your responsibility is your family.
Exactly.
And that's what you got to look at.
Exactly. So I just like, you know, sucked it like all in and was like, all right, cool. Well, I'm going to do the best I can at this. And like, you know, the wife, like, you know, poor her. She's crushing it too. And we kind of just looked at it like, all right, let's try to make a little positive out of this, like a small victory, right? Like you're trying to ruin my life and soft assassination and all this stuff. But, you know, inadvertently, you gave me 16 months of like every day.
Yeah. That's
with my daughter.
Silver lining.
And yeah, I was just like, man, I'm just going to smile every time. Like every smile I get from her that I wasn't supposed to see because I was at, you know, work or whatever, win.
That's awesome.
Or it's like, you want to keep score? Like, you want to keep score of like what they did to you versus you did whatever? No, don't do that. Like, count the smiles.
Yeah.
Like, that's your win.
Well, good, man. I think, keep pushing forward like that. Keep that attitude.
Yeah, right track, right path.
Yep. And then once you start going down a negative path, like, and it will happen, I'd say find someone that you can talk to. Buddies,
yeah,
just
that's
like,
key.
hey man, it's huge.
Support system is key.
I did talk therapy I still do every once in a while. I call the same guy. I'm like, hey man, I'm having these thoughts or like these, you know, and I don't want to go down into negative town. So just getting it out helps.
No, it's
and
huge.
Then I'm like, oh, all right, I'm okay. But find little things to do like that. And then, like I said, I'll connect you with a couple things after this that hope maybe can help you or maybe not. But either way,
man, we'll see.
Yeah.
And we'll just go from here and just keep pushing.
Well, I'm sorry that you had to go through all that, man. That is a fucking painful story. But at the same time, it's not over. There's no end to that story.
No, it's not, man. I'm sitting here. We're having a conversation.
Right. We're having this conversation. You're in 30A.
Right.
I'm glad you came down here. But yeah.
Awesome.
We'll keep in contact.
Cool. Thanks, Eddie.
All right, brother.
I appreciate it.
Out.